Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you're watching second and final part of What If Good Naruto Saved Kurenai. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Then he said, "Look, Naruto is pissed at Kakashi right now because Kakashi has basically abandoned him and Sakura since day one as a team to focus on Sasuke, and then with what happened last night he blames him for that, also for making Sasuke feel like a king. The only thing he learned from Kakashi was tree climbing, and that was so he could mostly show Sasuke. Now if you were smart I would listen to Naruto warning, because from what he told me Gaara is like him. A Jinchuriki, but unlike Naruto he has no qualms about hurting or killing someone. The Hokage has already checked in on it, and it turns out Gaara was made a living weapon on purpose. Now I got to go and try and calm him down before he blows something or someone up. Before." As he headed toward the Hokage tower, Asuma sighed and pondered. What's up with her, and why is it she is with Naruto? I need to warn Shikamaru about Gaara somehow, though I wonder why Dad has not told me about him yet. Someone stepped in front of Naruto, stopping him as he was approaching the forest of death, forcing him to apply the brakes. "Yes, Mrs. Haruno, can I help you with something?" he said in a kind voice as he put on his emotional mask, blinking and looking at the person, thinking, not now, why does she have to show up now? Mrs. Haruno replied, "Hello Naruto-san. I was wondering if you would talk with me in private a few moments. Anything you need to speak to me about will have to be spoken in front of Kurenai sensei here. I have things I need to do," Naruto said in a kind voice as Kurenai fell to the ground. Mrs. Haruno replied, "Actually I would like to talk to you alone Naruto. Can we make an appointment then please? Anything you tell me I will tell her anyway, so you might as well tell her also. I don't keep secrets from her," Naruto said, glancing at her. Both of them blink and turn to face Mrs. Haruno as she nods and says, "Hello Ms. I am Rukia Haruno and I am Naruto aunt." As he clenched his fist, Naruto said, "All right, I suppose some tea won't hurt anything," Kurenai nodded. They followed Rukia to her house after Kurenai put her hand on his shoulder and relaxed. Sakura said, "Hello Naruto, Kurenai sensei, mother, what are you doing here?" as they approached the house. Both Naruto and Kurenai were staring at one another. Replied, "Your mother here said she wished to speak to Naruto and she claimed she was his aunt and offered some tea. Naruto said he would tell me whatever was said anyways since I am helping train him a little for the finals, so she allowed me to come." Sakura glanced at her mother and said, "I see. Mind if I sit in on what you say? Please make yourself at home. I will be back in a moment after I put some water on to boil." Her mother nods and enters the house, holding the door open for the three to enter before closing it and leaving the room. "What's going on Sakura-chan? I didn't know we were related," Naruto said in a silly voice as he glanced at Sakura. Sakura whispered softly, "Cut the act Naruto. I know about you being my cousin. The Hokage told me last night." With a pale face, Naruto asked, "What did he tell you?" Both Kurenai and Naruto gasped when Sakura said, "He gave me a scroll from my father, but only after I heard a little conversation in a bathroom." With a knot in her stomach, Kurenai inquired, "What kind of conversation?" Sakura responded, "Oh nothing Tenchi. Just about how my inner self is scarier than Kyuubi and a few other things. Don't worry, I don't see you as it Naruto. In fact I am only here now to get my things because I am moving out. I can't stand what my mother did to you, and I told her I also learned the truth about why I was born and to tell the truth I feel." She was interrupted by her mother, who returned to the space to say, "Now that the tea is on I suppose I should start to tell you why I wanted to speak with you Naruto. I think Sakura should also hear this because this concerns her also. I know you must hate me Naruto, but at least give me one chance to tell you my story. If after the story you refuse to talk to me Aegean or want to kill me, I will not think ill of you or try and stop you. All I ask for is a chance please. Both of you." She was staring at them. "I guess Kami wants to make my life a joke today and I am being asked by everyone to give them a chance, so why not?" Naruto sighed as he sat down on the couch with Kurenai at his side. Looking at Sakura, Sakura took a seat on the couch next to her. Rukia murmured, "It starts before either of you were even born. I was 15 at the time and my parents, who were merchants, were both killed during a supply trip by bandits. I was also a civilian and we lived above our family store. It was in a village about 2 days travel from Konoha, and after they were killed the bank foreclosed on our home and kicked me out. I had no money and the only skills I had were as a merchant, but with no place to stay I wound up living on the streets. It was not long before I was offered a place to stay and a job as a party girl." Sakura thought, "So she was a prostitute. This just makes me feel even worse about myself," as she glanced at her mother. Rukia stated, "At first all I had to do were a few dances and show a little flesh. I did not want to be whore, but I found out that about a week in that I had to pay for my place to stay with 500 a week or else I would become a slave. I got desperate because I only made around 300 a week off of tips and dances, and so I tried to leave, but the boss of the place locked me up in a room for 2 weeks with no food and only a glass of water every 2 days. He then told me I was 1200 in the hole after he took the monet I had already made. That was when Jiraiya-sama came in with your father Naruto. Naruto turned to her and she said, Jiraiya-sama was trying to get Minato-sama to agree to have a bachelor party and he was pretty wasted, but Minato kept saying your mother would kill him and he did not need one. Your father left without a second glance, but Jiraiya-sama decided to brag about himself and started flashing money around to anyone who would listen. I made 3,000 that night and paid my boss and left the village looking for somewhere to start over away from my embarrassment on the road. I was attacked by some bandits who stole my money and were going to rape me. When Jiraiya-sama and Minato-sama arrived, they killed the bandits, but one got away with my money, and Jiraiya-sama felt sorry for me, so they took me to Konoha. When we arrived, they helped me find a job at the library and a place to stay, but I was barely making ends meet. Then, thanks to some foolish genin, the library burned down, and I lost my job. I was terrified that I would end up back on the streets and in trouble like I had before, so I tried to think of ways to survive until I met your father, Chad Sakura, who was looking for a midwife and asked if I knew anyone who could help. He said that it was for his sister, who did not want to use some random ninja during her pregnancy. I pretended that I did because I needed the job, and everything was fine until your mother hit her 6th month. I told Chad that if he did not do what I told him, I would sell out your mother and father to Iwa because I knew they had kept their relationship a secret from your father's enemies. When she started having problems and they found out I knew nothing, Chad went to fire me for lying to him. Since I was living in their home at the time, I had nowhere to go and only a little money, so my fear caused me to do something I have regretted ever since. Kurenai gasped as Naruto clenched his fist as she spoke. Sakura remained silent and Rukia said, anyways, I told him if he would agree to marry me then I would keep my lips shut and he would not tell anyone what I threatened. He agreed and he lied to his family and told them he loved me so they would let us be married, never telling them what I did. Then about a month later he went missing on a mission, and since I had no job I found out I also could not touch any of the money he lived on because to do so had to have a blood relation of the Uzumaki family, so I became scared Aegean, but Naruto father let me become a member of the civilian council as the library fund advisor since I had experience as a librarian. Then Chad returned nearly dead and he was furious because he was told how I tried to get to the money in his account when I thought he was dead, and he threatened to have me arrested for treason, but that night an Iwa assassin came and tried to kill your mother. Not because of the fact she was Minato wife, but because she was the Rasenkage of Whirlpool. Before it was destroyed I bluffed and told him that was a sleeper spy I told about her, and if anything happened to me I had friends who would send the info I had, so he backed down, but not before I made sure that I had a way to survive if he did die on a mission, so I forced him to have sex with me until I was pregnant. They were all staring at her when Naruto said, you know, if I was really the demon you said I was I would kill you right now. He demonstrated this by holding out his hands so that everyone could see the blood dripping from the places where his nails dug into them. Sakura averted her gaze and uttered, mother, I don't know what to think of you. I mean. Kurenai stayed silent and placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder before saying, I think you should continue your story now, Ms. Haruno, because as it stands now I can guarantee you won't get another chance. Rukia nods and said, right. Well, anyways, as you know, the Kyuubi came and Minato, Kushina, and Chad all died, and I knew who Naruto was since I had heard Minato and Chad argue over it, and so I chickened out and joined a majority of the council asking for his death even though I knew we were wrong. I thought of only myself until Sakura was born. When I had her I stopped worrying about myself and worried about her. That was why when the third asked me that day if I would take you, I knew if I did they would hurt Sakura and I couldn't take the thought of her getting her. She was all I had in the world, so I made sure the third would never ask me Aegean by calling you a demon and acting like others do. I thought that if you never knew what I said or the truth about how things happened, then my sins would never come back to haunt me. I was only 17 when I had Sakura. I was scared and stupid back then, and I know I will never be able to make it up to either of you what I have done, but I had to try and ask for both of your forgiveness. Please, forgive me, and if my saying I am sorry is not enough, then tell me what will be and I will do it. If you want I will commit ritual suicide, but please, you now know of my sins. Please pass judgment on me. As she sat on her knees with her head on the floor bowing toward Naruto and Sakura. Do you really mean you have changed from the person you were? Asked Naruto after a period of silence. Yes, please allow me to prove it, Rukia replied. With a sigh, Naruto turned to face the ceiling and said, I would have told you to kill yourself and never look back if you had asked me this before we went on our first C-rank mission, but on that mission I saw how desperate people can be when they have nothing left. I also understand you wanting to protect Sakura, so I will give you a task. This caused all three women to turn to face him. What is it? Whatever it is, I will do it, Rukia inquired. After a few minutes, Naruto reached into his vest, took a pen from the desk, and started to write himself. He then stopped, rolled up the scroll, and said, "This scroll contains a list of names. The people on this list are people I consider family to me. If you want my forgiveness, then you will have to get to each of these people and talk to them. Find out what they think of me and why they are people I care for. Once you have talked to each of these people, come back in and talk to the last person on the list, and when you do I want you to tell me exactly what you have learned from talking to these people. If you truly learn what I hope you will, I will forgive you. If not, you're just doing this to get Sakura to move back in now. If you will excuse me, I have to go blow something up." Sakura got up and followed Kurenai. "Mom, I don't know what to say. I mean, I am upset at you, but like Naruto, I also saw the pain and suffering and desperation of people when we went to Wave. I saw a little 5-year-old girl begging for food and saw a little boy who had lost all hope. I don't know what to think at the moment. When you go to tell Naruto what you learned, let me be there also. That way maybe I can understand what to feel for right now. I don't hate you, Mom, for what you did before I was born. I pity you. I don't know what to think about what you did after I was born, though it's going to take some time for me to understand that I still can't live here right now. I need some time to think. I already talked to Tenten and she's going to let me stay at her place for a little while, so I need to get the rest of my stuff." When she got up to gather things prior to departing. At the entrance to the Forest of Death, Kurenai caught up to Naruto and asked, "Are you okay?" Naruto replied, "No, I am not. I want to hate her, I really do, but I can't because I understand her fears better than anyone. I know what it's like to be hungry, scared, alone, and now that I am with you I don't feel that way, but if we ever broke up I don't think I am strong enough to go back to being alone. It scares me to think about, and I might be just as desperate as she was. That's what makes me upset the most. I don't hate the woman who blackmailed my family and used them. I pity her." He was staring at the sky. Kurenai replied, "I know, Naruto, I understand. Also I know what it's like also to be alone and scared." Gazing at her, Naruto remarked, "Really, you never told me that." According to Kurenai, I had just entered the academy when my mother was killed on a mission. I was scared and confused. I knew how to cook a little and also how to shop for groceries a little, but I did not have very much money. I got desperate, and luckily for me a friend of my mother's got me a job to work it on the weekends to give me a little money, but I had to be careful with it or I would not have enough food and utilities. It was not enough to go use on silly little things like most kids my age did. I remember kids making fun of me because I did not have any parents anymore and that I would never amount to anything. That's why I vowed to myself to become a true female ninja like my mother and make a name for myself so that way I can prove I was something." With a sigh, Naruto remarked, "Life's fucked up." As she put her hands on his shoulder and they shuffled to the tower, Kurenai laughed and giggled, saying, "Yes it is. Now come on. The others are probably waiting on us. Don't want to be later than Kakashi." For those who are wondering why I didn't have her shushin them directly to the tower, the reason is that it requires a lot of chakra to do so. The distance is about 5 miles from her apartment and across the Forest of Death, so she would have been worn out from using shushin to travel that far. A bit earlier in the Hokage Tower, the third said, "So you three understand what has happened to Naruto. I want you to find out the extent to the change to his body with the death of the Kyuubi as well as his actual skill level. One also want this to remain an S-rank secret for the time being. I don't want to start even more trouble with the village. For now everyone but Kakashi may leave." The third said, "Kakashi, I must warn you about something else. As of right now Naruto blames you for what Sasuke did." Jiraiya and Anko both bowed and departed using shushin. Not understanding, Kakashi remarked, "But sir, why does he blame me?" The third individual said, "Kakashi, Naruto knew from the first day on your team you were the Anbu Inu. He remembered your smell and knew you helped him as a child. He thought that with you as his sensei he would actually be treated as a person, but after the first day you threw him away to focus mostly on Sasuke. He blames you because you gave everything to Sasuke while ignoring both him and Sakura, and then Sasuke goes to not only defect but also hurt one of his only friends in the worst possible way. You have screwed up with him, Kakashi, and you have better use this chance helping him to fix it, because I doubt you will get another chance now." Kurenai is there for emotional support for Naruto because they have a friendship. She was there for him after his first kill when you weren't. He trusts her and has told her things he has not even told me, so you may not have a warm reception with her also because she is protective of him. Now go. Kakashi nods before vanishing in a leaf whirl. He saw Naruto and Kurenai arrive in a flurry of leaves, and when he said, "Yo," everyone turned to stare at him, and Naruto frowned. Kakashi mused, "Damn. He really does blame me. I guess I did screw up after all. Okay, Gaki, drop the henge so we can see what we are dealing with," Jiraiya said with a sigh after noticing this. When Kurenai cancels the "just you," Naruto nods and turns to face him. Everyone gasps at the transformation, and Kakashi remarks, "He looks exactly like his father now." There is no denying you or your father's son, Jiraiya thought. Your boyfriend has turned into a hot Kuru-chan, Anko thought as she licked her lips. He should be yours before anyone else does. Kurenai responded, have you been informed about the rest of his changes? We are aware that the Kyuubi is dead, Jiraiya stated. Is there anything more? Oh yeah, you might want to prepare yourself for this one, Kurenai said, shedding a few perspirations as she moves away. She says, go ahead, Naruto. When Naruto nods and slightly leans forward, two enormous angel wings appear on his back, and Anko exclaims, holy shit. The Gaki went from being a demon boy to a fallen angel, talk about irony. Naruto grinned and stuck out his tongue, saying, shut up chicken fucker. Anko produced a kunai and hurled it at Naruto, who deflected it with his left wing, which moved in front of him automatically. As everyone watched, Naruto exclaimed, whoa, that was cool, it reacted on its own. Jiraiya replied, so besides being taller and having wings, do you feel any different? After giving it some thought, Naruto remarked, I feel lighter, like I lost a lot of weight. I also feel like I have more chakra and am much stronger. Jiraiya paused for a moment and replied, alright Gaki, let's start off with you mass training. I want you to create as many cage bunshin as you can in one go so we can see how much your chakra reserves have been affected. The whole area was suddenly covered in clones as Naruto nods, seals his hands, and says, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With wide eyes, Kakashi pulled up his head and remarked, it looks like there are around 1200 here. Naruto looked at him and replied, it's strange, I created just as many as I used to, but I don't feel like I used as much chakra as I used to. Upon observing Naruto, Kakashi remarked, you could make 1200 at a time, Naruto. According to Jiraiya, he maxed out at 1000 on his own before Kakashi and at 1500 when he used Kyuubi chakra as well. As his sensei, you ought to have been aware of his capabilities. Great, does everyone know how much I fucked up? Kakashi thought. Frowning, I acknowledged that this was impressive, but I could have greatly improved his chakra control if I had known he was capable of doing this and had been aware of the advantages, as he realized he had made a serious mistake. Okay, Gakis, divide into 12 even groups. Anko will take 3, Kakashi will take 3, Kurenai will take 3, and I will take 3. I also want the real Naruto to be with me, Jiraiya stated. Kurenai, I want you to work on his chakra control and see where it stands. Anko, have him practice whatever you were teaching him. Work with him on anything that needs improvement if it has changed. Teach him the next exercise in the workout if things have improved. Please take your group and begin teaching him any wind jutsu you have copied. Kakashi, he has a natural affinity for wind, so if my guess is correct, he can use those wings to enhance the effect, just like the sand girl did with her fan. Now split up and go to different places unless Naruto dispels you or you run out of chakra. Don't dispel any of you. Don't practice Taijutsu either while I test his actual body. I will work with the original on that. Proceed now. Everyone nods, and they split up, but Kakashi was not pleased with the appearance of his group. 300 individuals who resembled his sensei were all scowling at him. Indeed, he had a long day ahead of him. Alright, I want 100 of you to work on tree climbing, 100 water walking, and 100 leaf balancing, Kurenai said as she drew her group to a stop by a stream. Well, it looks like your control is actually better now than before since none of you seem to be wasting any chakra doing these exercises, Kurenai said, scowling as each group nodded and started working. I want the 100 who completed the leaf exercise to continue doing it, but on top of water as well. I want the ones on water to get a leaf and do both exercises. She said, okay, now we got a guide to go by, let's continue. After a few of them went up in smoke on the trees and the water, she concluded, so his control is high chunin. Although it has increased, more work is still needed. Alright, Gakis, Anko said, glancing at her group, I want all 300 of you to split up into groups of 50 and begin practicing the 5 jutsu I gave you. Do them until you dispel them, each of you. As snakes flew out of her coat at them, I want you to test out those wings by avoiding these for the last 50. Kakashi responded, alright, I am going to teach you futon. Daitapa great breakthrough. A clone remarked, I already know that one. Alright, how about Fusajin dust wind? Kakashi sighed. As he demonstrated the jutsu slowly enough for each clone to see, Kakashi said, okay, I want 50 of you to work on the futon Daitapa and make sure you can still use it, and I want 50 of you to memorize these hand signs and begin working on them also. The clones exchanged glances. Kakashi said, alright, let's see, while they are working on them, do any of you know futon? Daikamaitachi great cutting whirlwind, as 100 of the clones hurried off to work on those. Alright, I want 100 of you to work on this jutsu. He grinned when he realized that none of them were aware of it, and after demonstrating it, the 100 of them went to practice. Alright, the last two I know are Kei's no Yaibo Blade of Wind, and Kamaitachi Cutting Whirlwind Technique. I want you to divide into two groups of 50. Here are the two techniques. Kakashi said, pointing to the final 100, while demonstrating the two techniques. He sat down and waited for about half an hour after the group split up to try the jutsu, and then he went to see how they were doing. Upon discovering the first group, he thought, well, they do know that jutsu, but it's a good idea to make sure it's mastered. He then proceeded to the next group, thinking, damn, he's almost got that one down. When he discovered that most of the clones had not only figured out the jutsu and were attempting to alter it, he fell on his. I fucked up big time for him to get those techniques. That good means he is a jutsu freak. He's getting them almost as fast as the Sharingan did for Sasuke. I had a prodigy on my team and ignored him. No wonder he hates me, he thought as he sat down to pout after finding the final two groups. Hey Kakashi sensei, we got this jutsu down, can you show us something else? Said Hokage Bunshin, who had just arrived. Sure, Kakashi replied, anything you interested in? The replica replied, we want to learn those jutsu you and Zabuza use the water, just you if we can. As he followed the clone back to his original group, Kakashi grinned behind his mask and replied, sure. Jiraiya led Naruto away from all of them and, alright Gaki, I want you to have 100 of your clones to go and work on the Rasengan. The next 100 I want to work on Doden. Yomi Numa Swamp of the Underworld, I want 50 of you to work on Harijizu Underworld Guardian Spikes. The last 49 I want to experiment with the wings and see if you can fly and what else they can do. The real Naruto I want to fight me so I can test you. Ready? Go, as he pursued Naruto. The Hokage was in his office later that afternoon when someone knocked on his door. He said, come in. The door opened, and a number of people entered. Shibi Aburame, Inoichi Yamanaka, Shuza Akamichi, Shikaku Nara, Sume Inuzuka, Ibiki Morino, Homura, and Kaharu were all visible to the third person, who looked up. He continued, thank you all for coming on short notice. I am sure you are all wondering why I have called you all here. According to Kaharu, I am sure you have your reasons. The third responds with a nod. Now what is about to be discussed in this room will be an S-rank secret. I want you all to understand. If you speak of it without my permission, I will have you executed immediately. Does everyone understand? Everyone looks at each other and says, now as you all know, there was an attack last night and the entire Hyuga clan was killed along with Sasuke Uchiha. Now this event has left our village in a weakened state, even worse than we were back after the Kyuubi attack. Morale is at an all-time low and our defense has already been sabotaged by Orochimaru once when he entered the Forest of Death to recruit Sasuke Uchiha. Now I will tell you why I have called you here. Konoha needs something that will not only scare our enemies but also give our village a moral boost. It just happens that thanks to another incident that happened last night, also we now have that, causing everyone to pause. Ibiki responded, what are you talking about, sir? I have not heard of any other incident. The third person said, I know, in fact besides myself only 5 other people know of this. As of 8 AM this morning the Kyuubi no Kitsune that was sealed into Naruto Uzumaki is dead, causing everyone to gasp. Says Inoichi, how sir? Ibiki inquired, who did it sir? Who killed Naruto? Let me know so that I may have some fun with them. Settle down everyone, Naruto is not dead, far from it actually, the third said with a laugh. How is that possible, sir? Shikaku inquired. The third replied, I suppose I should start with telling a truth I have hidden from everyone. The truth is I know who Naruto parents were all along. Naruto real name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Causing everyone to look at him as he continued. He is the son of Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, the Kyudame Rasenkage of Whirlpool. Now why this is important is because the Uzumaki family has a bloodline that is carried by the females of Thier family. According to Hamaru, but Naruto is a male. Not when he uses his sexy no jutsu he isn't, the third said with a smile. Sume asked, what do you mean, sir? As everyone blinked. The third speaker said, the sexy no jutsu that Naruto has demonstrated was an accidental jutsu that he created when attempting to do a henge. In actuality it is a shapeshift on a cellular level. It actually turns him into a woman. It turns his entire body into one. When he first created it, before he figured out how to get out of it, he was in it long enough to have a monthly cycle, causing everyone to gasp. After everyone got over their shock, the third said, anyways, as I was saying, the Uzumaki females have a bloodline where they possess an inner personality. There are currently 2 Uzumaki in the world. One is Naruto and the other is his cousin whose identity will remain a secret. Anyways, she also has this bloodline. The inner personality is not what makes this so special, as all it really does is annoy the primary personality. That is not what makes it important to actually activate the bloodline. The primary personality has to do acts that disgust the inner personality until it wants to leave. When the inner personality decides to leave, it dies, and then the girl's body will change and get some kind of special bonus like more chakra, faster speed, more strength. Each girl is different. Now, why I am explaining this to you: Naruto, after he heard about the death of Hinata, he cried and mourned her, as well as counseled another friend of Hinata in his female form, because he did not want to be blamed by someone for this attack because of their own ignorance. When he did that, the Kyuubi as a demon could not stand seeing him like that and must have wanted to leave Naruto to escape from being in what it considered a weak host, and the bloodline killed it. Inoichi questioned, "How can we be sure that it is truly gone?" After everyone had had time to process the information. The third replied, "Well, besides the fact that Naruto's body has changed, the seal having completely went away along with his whiskers, and the fact that there is no demon chakra in him, nothing really." Shikaku questioned, "So what exactly have you called us here for? I mean, if you are wanting to keep the fact that Kyuubi is finally dead a secret, then there must be some reason." Everyone in the group considered what they had heard. As he took out his viewing ball, the third said, "Yes, there is now, because of the Kyuubi dying. Naruto's body has had a major transformation. Please look into my crystal ball to see what I am referring to. As you can see, he is now the spitting image of his father along with his wings which do work," the third person said as the ball came into view. "Now I have had this morning Jiraiya, Kakashi, Anko, and Kurenai all working with him, and Jiraiya, would you please give everyone your report?" The wall behind everyone shimmered and Jiraiya appeared and said, "Well, let's start off with his stats. His chakra reserves are larger than mine and the third's put together, and his chakra kantal is high chunin. His speed is low junin. Physical strength is only low chunin, but his ninjutsu is where the fun begins." As the third already knows, he has known the Hiraishin for some time now, making everyone gape. He can do the Rasengan currently with the help of a Kage Bunshin, but he is working on doing it without the clone's help. Before today, using only his chakra, he could make 1000 Kage Bunshin at a time, but with the Kyuubi chakra, after I taught him to use it, he could make 1500. Now that the Kyuubi is gone and his body has changed, he maxes out at around 1200. That does not mean that is his chakra level divided to 1200, though it's just for some reason his body won't let him exceed a certain level, which would then put a mental strain on him. Kakashi has already taught him around 15 jutsu today that he has mastered, added to the ones Anko and myself have already taught him this month, including being able to summon Gambunta. He is basically a one-man army. Inoichi questioned, "Do the wings have any other function besides flight, or do they let him fly?" Has everyone considered the ramifications of having him this strong? Jiraiya added, "They do let him fly, and they work mostly on instinct. They block weapons, and when he uses wind jutsu, he can use them as a fan user from Suna would a fan. They also are a chakra reserve for him." The third person asked, "What do you mean?" Jiraiya continued, "When I had him summon Gambunta earlier to make sure he still could, his wings went back into his body. Apparently half of his chakra is stored in those wings. When he uses half, they have to wait until he rests before coming back out. That is all we know for sure so far." The third replied, "Very well, now the reason I called you all here is because, as Jiraiya stated, Naruto could be a one-man army. The fact he looks like his father and knows all three of the moves that made him famous will put Iwa on edge and back away from attacking us. Since we also know that Orochimaru is planning something for the finals of the Chunin exams, it would be a good chance for the second yellow flash of Konoha to emerge to boost our own reputation, but also to make our enemies back down. What I want, though, is in order for this to work, Naruto will have to represent himself as a leader that the other ninja of our village would be willing to march into battle with. This is where I want your help." "You want us to train him?" Shikaku said. The third replied, "Yes, but, before you decide, let me give you all a little more info to help you decide. The Naruto you all remember seeing as a child is not the real Naruto. If people would have given him a chance when he was younger, they would have discovered what I already knew and what the ones I have teaching him now have discovered. Naruto is a practical prodigy. If he reads something in a book or scroll, he only gets the basics of it, but if he hears something or actually sees it, he has a photographic memory. You all remember his pranks where he lead Chunin, Junin, and Enbu all across the village for hours. Those pranks were actually the attack patterns we used on Iwa during the last war." Kaharu inquired, "What do you mean?" The third said, "When Naruto was younger, I had Naruto tested by Itachi. He took Naruto to the Anbu private training ground and ran the course one time and let Naruto watch. Naruto from that one time was able to run the entire course in less than 7 minutes, bypassing each of the traps, infiltrate the objective area, retrieve the item and escape by designing his own strategy. I had suspected this but could not probe it until then, and from that day I would tell him stories over ramen or during our walks about different things, and I would change the names of people and places but give the exact geography of the area and the number of units and tell how they would move, attack, counterattack, and flank, withdraw and feint. I then would wait a few months and set up some kind of challenge where I offered him ramen or something he wanted, and I would have our patrols set up to run the exact patterns the ones in my stories went, and Naruto by watching only 5 minutes would either use the plans I gave him that we used or improve off of them. Instead of using an exploding tag or paint as he often substituted, he would instead use high pollen flowers to block the noses of the members of your clan Sume. For the ones with Hyuga in them he would use mirrors. According to Shibi, "Mirrors, sir," the third said. "Since there are no Hyugas left, I guess I can tell you. Their bloodline could not see through reflective material like mirrors. Naruto experimented and discovered this on accident. How do you think he stole all of the Hyuga underwear that one day he hung them on the front gates? He tied a mirror on his chest and back and using his stealth skills to bypass any patrols. Anyways, what I am saying is Naruto is a lot smarter than he let people know. All the jutsu he learned from Kakashi. He had a Kage Bunshin watch him do the jutsu one time slow enough for him to see the hand signs and the effect, and then he would go and work on it. In fact, a few he had also started modifying himself. If you have him read from books and scrolls, he won't get it unless he reads it multiple times, but show him things, then he will shock you by how good he is at in the fact he can use his Kage Bunshin, and everything they learn goes back to the original. When dispelled, you have someone who has a learning curve of the Sharingan but the ability to adapt and think on his feet of a possible Sannin or Kage. Inoichi replied, "If what you said is true and the fact he has all those high-level jutsu, why is he going to be in the Chunin exams? Why not just advance him?" The third said, "Two things. One, there is another Jinchuriki in the exams and he is mentally unstable. Naruto is probably the only one who can fight him besides myself or Jiraiya. If we are attacked like I fear we will, then Suna may have betrayed us because it goes against the treaty we formed to send someone like Gaara here without warning us. I believe with what I have seen and heard about him that he is the key to the enemy's plan to attack, since he can release the demon at will, allowing it to control his body. Since Orochimaru is involved, the possibility of summons is also there, so Jiraiya will have to deal with them and I will have to deal with Orochimaru and possible the Kage as well if they have betrayed us. No offense to anyone else, but Naruto is the only other person in this village who could go toe-to-toe with a Jinchuriki and live. If Naruto can neutralize Gaara during the actual exam, then he would be a wild card our enemies would not be expecting, and using the jutsu he knows if he had some better strategies, a better understanding of our own units, so he can add his Kage Bunshins in to aid or replace any units that are injured or killed, making him not only a hero for our forces but also something for our enemies to fear. That is what I want your help in, training him into a more effective leader. He already is a tank in battle, and with your help he could save all of our asses in a little over a week. I plan to turn him into a symbol for our village with Orochimaru defection and Tsunade on her own self-exile. Jiraiya is the only Sannin we can count on. That is why I want your help to turn Naruto into the next Sannin." Shuza said, "Okay. I understand why you ask Ibiki, Shukaku, the elders, and Shibi here, but why me and Inoichi?" After everyone in the crowd had heard the third. The third replied, "I believe anything either of you might be able to teach him would be useful, because knowledge is power. Knowing your allies is just as important as knowing your enemies, and by having each of you help train Naruto you can also decide then if I have made the right decision in wanting to turn him into a Sannin. Now who is willing to do this for the good of Konoha?" One by one they thought it over and agreed, and the third said, "Good. Here in each of these scrolls is the Kinjutsu Kage Bunshin, no jutsu in it. I want you all to take one and go and learn it today, and first thing in the morning at 7 AM I want you to meet at the tower in the Forest of Death and use that jutsu to help teach several things at once to different Kage Bunshins, Shukaku. I would also like for you to inform your son Shikamaru also of this, including Naruto true history. I have reports from his sensei that his IQ is actually over 200. I want him to bring some shogi and go games with him and have him play them with Naruto. As you know, those games were originally designed off of battlefield tactics, so that would also help him since your son has never lost from what I have heard. Don't teach him Kage Bunshin though, since he does not have the reserves for it. Shibi, I would also like your son Shino also to come and play those as well, since he is also quite brilliant at making plans from what I have heard, and anything else you feel would be important. Inform him also of the truth of Naruto. Also now remember this, an S-rank secret and must not be told to anyone. I don't allow. Especially Danzo, because as you all know he has wanted to turn Naruto into a weapon since the day he was born, and if he heard about this he would demand it and reveal it to the entire council, and as you all know most of the council is behind him when it comes to Naruto. Thank you all for this help, and hopefully everything will work out as I have planned." The third grinned and said, Now, Naruto, it's time to show the world the real you. I hope you're ready for what I have planned. The other two left. Jiraiya, Anko, Kakashi, and Kurenai all gathered around the unconscious Naruto that night after he had cancelled his cage bunshin in groups of 50. Jiraiya then remarked, "So you all heard now what the old man has planned for tomorrow. Why don't you guys let me take him home? He is my student for a few more days before he outranks me, and I am sure you guys could use the rest." Kurenai went over and picked Naruto up with Anko's assistance after they all nodded. Kurenai glanced at Anko and replied, "We would, but you don't know where the Hokage has had him moved to ever since the second assassination attempt on his life in the hospital. After the second exam, the Hokage had him moved to a more concealed location." Every one of the three other adults looked at Kakashi with perspiration when he asked, "What second attempt? When was the first?" Jiraiya continued, "Kakashi, Orochimaru tried to assassinate him by poison right after the preliminaries. If it had not been for Anko summoning the same kind of snake and letting the medics create an anti-venom, he would have died then. Why he was in the hospital recovering from that. Another assassination attempt happened on him by that girl on the Sound Genin team. Kiba walked into his room in time to stop her and save his life. After that, Anko stated, I have been giving him tiny doses of anti-venom from every snake I can call forth in the morning. While I have been helping train him, we discovered that all his body needs is a sample of the anti-venom and that the snake can't harm him other than by biting him." When Kakashi realized how little he truly knew, he looked down and said, "Then tell me where he is now staying." "I apologize, Kakashi," Kurenai said. "Even though he worked with you, he is still mad at you right now and needs some time to move on. I'm sorry, but I won't tell you until Naruto is stable because your presence and pressure will not help him, and only about 5 people are aware of where he is staying for his safety. He has recently caused me a great deal of emotional harm, and I will no longer allow it to happen." As she nods and she and Anko shushin with the unconscious Naruto away, she says, "You want to make up for your mistakes, don't forget you also still have another student you have ignored also." As he was thrown into a tree by Jiraiya's fist, Kakashi sighed and said, "I screwed up, didn't I, Hara?" Jiraiya then pushed him back down as he was about to stand up and called for a toad to sit on him. "Now listen here, Kakashi," he said in a commanding voice, "because I didn't want to do this in front of the Gaki or those women, so you will shut up and listen to me or I will put you in the hospital for the rest of your life. Since the Gaki joined your team, I have heard about what you did to him and am aware of other things that have happened to him. When it comes to teaching 2 of your students, you have failed. I'll now share some information with you about your beloved Uchiha that you might not be aware of. Do you recall how he obtained that cursed seal? Only because Naruto saved them both did he receive it rather than being killed with Sakura. In order to escape, your darn favorite student was prepared to sacrifice not just the test but also the lives of his teammates. Naruto saw it, but Sakura did not. When Sakura was preoccupied with witnessing Naruto use all of his strength to battle Orochimaru, Sasuke was retreating to flee. Sasuke would have to assist after Naruto created a cage bunshin who punched him in the stomach to return to the scene of the fight. Naruto is angry with you now that he went and did what he did because he knows that if the third had not informed you that I would be training him and you had been concentrating on Sasuke, you would have had someone else train him while you trained Sasuke yourself. He is not a moron. All of that was done to save his life. He's also more perceptive than most people realize. He believes you are a replacement or that you are acting like a sensei out of sympathy and guilt now that Sasuke is dead, even though he is too arrogant to say these things. Anyone who knows him well can read him like a book. Even the fucking Shinigami won't spare you from my wrath if you don't start making amends with him because he can't stand guilt and pity." He departed in a flurry of leaves. After the toad was engulfed in smoke, Kakashi slowly stood up and began to move. However, he was caught by multiple snakes and placed in a crushing hold. Anko then emerged from the forest holding a kunai and greeted Kakashi. "What is it, Anko? I understand if you're telling me how much I've failed as a sensei," Kakashi said with a sigh. "I am the worst person ever." "Nope, that's not why I am here," Anko said with a menacing smile. "I believe that everyone else is pointing that out quite effectively. I'm here to warn you not to seek him out when he's not in training. The Gakis has at last discovered what he has always desired in life. Happiness and love. He wants to protect her, so I won't tell you who she is, but she has accepted him completely. She is the only person who has fully taken off his emotional mask, and if you try to find him and speak with him, you will probably find out who she is as well. If she doesn't do it first, he will probably kill you to keep it a secret because you betrayed his trust. Kakashi, you have been excluded from his life by your own actions. If you wish to regain it, you will need to work hard for it. That's all I wanted to say, but I'll kill you if you ever approach him again and harm him in the same way you have." She had the snakes squirm him for a second before they vanished into smoke. "What do you mean I betrayed him?" inquired Kakashi. Anko paused, gave him a dumbfounded look, and remarked, "You had his trust, Kakashi, something he does not give often. Because of what you did for him when he was younger and even before you were his sensei, he trusted you. After that day when you ignored him or cut him down with your critical assessment of his shortcomings without offering advice on how to get better, you treated him like the villagers every day. Tell me who he could have gone to in this entire village to get information on how to get better at controlling his chakras, who he could talk to about his speed, who he could get out to practice his taijutsu, and where he could go to get jutsu other than his Kage Bunshin. The Hokage was the only ninja he was certain could assist him, but who could he truly turn to because he is constantly occupied in the tower and has other responsibilities? He could only learn leaf balancing from Iruka. He couldn't really learn that with his reserves Kakashi until he had some control. Like climbing trees, you would chastise him and abandon him to the wolves. Even though you were his only hope at the time, he was both alone and part of a team. As she turned to Mud, she said, "That's how you betrayed him, Kakashi. You ignored him." Kakashi sighed and thought, he had no one to go to, as he slowly stood up again to see if anyone else would attack him. "I believe that this team was similar to mine. Like Rin, Sakura was a fangirl, but she consistently disregarded her own training in order to focus on Sasuke. I saw Naruto as Obito. But Obito had friends and a whole clan to support him, and I saw Sasuke as myself. But Sasuke was not me. He only cared about power and himself." Naruto left in a flurry of leaves, saying, "I had neither," as he shed a tear. He hurried to the Junin lounge to grab a drink of sake when he got back to the village, and a few minutes later, Asuma sat down at the table and asked, "So how are things with you and Naruto? Does everyone know how much I messed up as a sensei? Does everyone take pleasure in kicking me while I'm down?" Kakashi slammed his own head against the table. "Have any of you placed a wager on who can kick my balls down my throat?" Guys suddenly showed up and asked, "Is that a challenge, my young rival?" He fell to the ground with a smile on his face and a slight flush. Kakashi glanced around the table on the floor at him and Asuma said, "He came in to get drunk after he had to save his student Lee from being killed by Gaara earlier. If so, I'll kick your balls down your throat the most, or I'll run 200 laps around the village on my thumbs, and if I can't do that I'll eat 20 bowls of ramen, and if one can do that I will ask out every person in Konoha until I get a date, and if I can..." Gaara seems to want to complete the tasks he began during the preliminary round. "I was wondering why his rants were stupider than normal," Kakashi said, nodding anyway. "Asuma, what do you want?" Asuma replied, "I was wondering, have you noticed how close Kurenai has been toward Naruto lately?" "Yeah, I see," Kakashi replied, "but the Hokage explained to me that it's because she is providing him with emotional support in light of everything that has happened to him. I'm referring to the events of last night as well as Orochimaru's attempted assassination." After making sure no one else was present, Asuma looked around and remarked, "I guess, but if you think about it, she's acting happier than she has in years. As long as no one is disparaging him, she is grinning and shows affection for her. But keep in mind how you called him a one-trick pony in the first exam section and how she behaved in the second when Naruto defeated one of her classmates. She wasn't merely congratulating your student or pointing out that Naruto had defeated Kiba. She was making fun of the fact that he was superior to what you said, as if she was pleased with him." After giving it some thought, Kakashi remarked, "Now that you bring it up, you're right. She did seem happier recently and she was bragging about Naruto. Additionally, Anko recently informed me that Naruto has at last found happiness and love. Additionally, just because Naruto has been relocated to a safer area does not imply that he is the cause of this. Perhaps she has been ordered to help his emotional state for longer than we realize, since the third person told me about Naruto's first kill and my failure to fulfill my obligations to assist him. It's possible that she was the one tasked with doing so. She could have simply found someone she likes or become friends with Naruto, who has a disposition that, if you get to know him, makes people happy." Asuma responds with a nod. "I suppose you're right, and that does make more sense than the Ice Queen of Konoha falling for some genin, but if so, then who is his love?" "Sakura, most likely." Kakashi snorted when he finally realized what he had said. He said, "He's been after her for years, and now that Sasuke's is dead, she might be using Naruto as an emotional crutch for his sake. I hope not." Back with Naruto and Kurenai, Kurenai had dressed Naruto, stripped him of all clothing except his boxers, and was about to take a bath after tending to some of the wounds he still had from the day when she heard a knock on her door. Seeing that Anko had left again to go stay with Iruka, which has been happening a lot lately, she put on a bathrobe, went to the door, and opened it. Sakura said, "Can I come in, Kurenai-sensei?" as she stood on the other side of the door. Sakura entered and took a seat after Kurenai nodded and moved aside. Sakura added, "I want to talk to you about Naruto. Is he around?" after Kurenai had shut the door and taken a seat. According to Kurenai, he's passed out in the bedroom, Some things have happened to him lately and he's out with chakra exhaustion right now, so we can talk. What does he like? Sakura inquired. What does he really like, after all? Kurenai inquired. What do you mean? I have had a lot of time lately to think and reevaluate things and I realize I don't really know him. Sakura sighed. He gave my mother a chance, which surprised me because I thought he would kill her today for threatening to harm his parents. Few people would take that action. He's always worried about everyone else, Kurenai remarked, leaning back. Even if it means sacrificing his personal happiness, there are times when I believe he acts as though he is the Hokage, even though he tells people he will be the Hokage. After a moment of reflection, Sakura grinned and remarked, I think you're right, but what if people never give him a chance to be Hokage? Kurenai laughed and replied, let's just say that Naruto is now closer to being Hokage than nearly everyone in this village besides about 5 people. In an attempt to learn more about her cousin, Sakura turned to face her and asked, really, why is that? I'm afraid you won't know until the Chunin exams, Kurenai said. She gave Sakura a tell me or die look as she said, Hokage-sama orders. That reminds me, what all did you hear of our conversation in the bathroom? Sakura swallowed and uttered, I just learned that Naruto was Kushina, that you and him are together, and that I can activate my bloodline. The Hokage then stopped the crystal ball, and she realized she shouldn't have said that, so she covered her mouth with her hand. Damn that thing, he always uses that to check on Naruto. Kurenai sighed. Because he cheated on us. I promise that one day I will castrate him. How did I mean? Why are you and him together? Sakura inquired. Based on my observations, you could have almost any man. Why did you decide to spend time with him? You never tell anyone if I tell you this, Kurenai said, closing her eyes. It's very personal and something I don't like to discuss. Telling anyone about this will betray not only Naruto's trust but also mine. Do you get it? Sakura nods, and Kurenai responds, well, over the course of the next 2 hours, she tells Sakura about how Naruto saved her in the beginning, how she later discovered it was him, how she saved him, a few random incidents that she felt were noteworthy, the day she discovered him on the Hokage monument following the Wave mission, and how their relationship developed from that point on, omitting the recent events of Kyuubi's death and his wings. At the story's conclusion, Sakura expressed her amazement and remarked, that is so romantic. I had no idea he was such a kind person. You were fortunate, and I believe he was as well one day. I hope you two lead happy lives together as husband and wife. Maybe someday, but we're still working on our feelings and other things, Kurenai said, flushed. It will require time on both our parts. Maybe, maybe not, Sakura remarked. You know that being a ninja is dangerous, so you might need to advance your plans more quickly. In any case, I want to thank you for our conversation, but I have to leave right now. I don't want to leave Tenten alone too much, she said. She's really depressed over the loss of Neji. Before leaving, Kurenai let out a sigh and went to see how Naruto was doing. She noticed that he was whimpering as if he were having a bad dream, so she sighed and scurried into bed next to him to comfort him. He still slept, wrapping his wings around her for protection. The following day, when the Hokage, Ibiki, Shino, Shibi, Shuza, Inoichi, Sume, Shikaku, Homura, and Kaharu arrived with Iruka, they all heard an explosion and saw Naruto flying about 15 feet off the ground while 4 enormous snakes chased after him, shooting earth spikes out of the area, traps going off with weapons flying at him and explosive notes going off, and toads shooting oil at him. Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Anko were standing on a hill with Kurenai tied to a cross behind them, shooting fire, earth, lightning, wind, and water jutsu at him at a high speed. Naruto dodged a spike, quickly throwing a kunia to the right as a fire jutsu came at him using Hiraishin. He disappeared and reappeared 30 yards away as he flew high, dodging the snake that burst out of the ground. He then clipped his wings behind him, backflipping in air to dodge a water dragon. He then used the speed he built up from flying toward the ground to barrel roll to the left to dodge another earth spike as boulders began flying at him. He quickly flashed through hand seals and without calling a jutsu he pulled back in flight to a complete stop, flapped his wings forward, sending the water and fire jutsu that were coming at him back toward Jiraiya and Anko. He then quickly replaced himself with a log as a snake bit down where he had been a moment earlier. Naruto then flew high into the air above the treetops and then cupped his wings behind him Aegean and fell toward the earth, quickly gaining more speed as he neared the ground. He pulled up at the last second, running 3 feet off the ground. Kakashi saw this and had his dogs burst from the ground trying to bite him, and Naruto grabbed one and threw it at the snakes who were coming behind him, forcing Kakashi to release the summons or have his favorite dog ate. As he got closer to the hill, Naruto quickly created a cage bunshin who hanged into Kurenai, and he caught it as he flew a little higher off the ground. The cage bunshin began to make hand signs, and as Naruto topped the hill, the bunshin was covered in smoke, and he said, "Boom!" Kurenai, who was tied behind Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Anko, exploded. Blowing all three off the hill. Naruto slowed his speed and shifted Kurenai, whom he was holding, into a bridal carry, and he landed lightly on the ground. Jiraiya started clapping as soon as he finished, saying, "Good job, Gaki. You recently completed the mission that I, Tsunade, and Orochimaru failed more than 25 years ago. It was during that mission that Hanzo gave us the name Sannin. At the time, 1,000 Iwa nins were holding a significant individual who had been captured by Iwa in rain. The person in custody had medical records for every Chunin and Junin, as well as information on patrol patterns and the defense of each hidden village. In an attempt to apprehend this individual and either kill him or bring him to their village so that the information he possessed could be utilized to defeat the other villages, Kumo sent nearly 400 ninja, Wind sent 300, and Konoha sent 700. Only 5 of us remained alive at the end of the battle: Hanzo, Orochimaru, Tsunade, myself, and the informant himself. I invited Kakashi and Anko to help me recreate the battle as accurately as possible last night after he called us the Sannins. Hanzo took the man to his village and made us either leave his country or give it to our enemies. You yourself almost killed us in addition to extracting the target. Well done." Kurenai, who was now standing next to Naruto, put her hands together over her heart and said, "My hero." In a sickly sweet voice, she kissed him on the cheek, causing him to flush and the others to laugh. "Well done, Naruto," said the third, with a clap. "It's time for me to speak with you, Shino, and Shikamaru now." The three of them turned to face him and approached the Hokage. The third replied, "Now, as you both now know, Naruto had the Kyuubi in him until recently, and I assume that you're both okay with that." "I was already aware of the Kyuubi," Shino stated. "As a child, I was informed by my clan hive. Anyone who believes that he and that creature are the same is irrational, in my opinion. The sheer number of idiots in Konoha is too much to bear." Shikamaru sighed. "I still don't think poorly of you, Naruto, even after having my suspicions confirmed." The third said, "Good. Now the reason you both are here, as you have been informed, is to help train Naruto along with the others I have brought here." Before Naruto could respond, "Given your opponents in the exams, you may think this is foolish, but the truth is that I anticipate war breaking out on that day. I have already made the decision to grant Shino and Shikamaru the field status of acting Chunin, regardless of the outcome of the exam. In the first match, Naruto will face Gaara, while you, Shino, will face Kankuro, the puppet master, and you, Shikamaru, will face Tamari, the wind user. Both of you will have your matches and reach a point where you are certain to win and defeat Gaara. If Naruto is unable to stop her as I have planned, you won't have to deal with Gaara. That way he will become weak enough for a Junin I have in mind to complete the task. If Naruto is unable to stop him, do you both get it?" Naruto asked, "What about me?" as both boys nodded. "Remember how I asked you if you would be willing to help me with a problem?" The third person said, "I would like you to become the third Sannin. You should be able to do it again because of Orochimaru's betrayal and the fact that you have already faced and survived him. In any case, you'll become Tenshi Sannin Sannin. The angel. Many people will be afraid of you because you resemble your father a lot and are skilled in several ANS rank jutsu. We've wasted enough time now, and I'll go into further detail later so that we can start. Kindly make as many cage bunshin as you can." The third said, "Okay, I want 100 with me," as Naruto nods and creates 1200 once more. "As you all informed me last night, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Anko, Naruto has a strong affinity for wind but is also capable of using earth and water jutsu. To make yourself more available to them, use Kage Bunshin. I want you to take 5 clones per jutsu and fit as many as you can into today's training. If you are able to use Kage Bunshin, please do so. Each person or Kage Bunshin should get 5 clones and begin teaching him what you believe he needs. For example, you should teach him strategy using Shoji and Go, and you should each get 5 and work with them. I want Homura and Kaharu to start researching as much as you can about the village's politics, such as how the council operates, who are the leaders and followers on the council, and how the council, elders, and I interact with diplomats and high-profile individuals. You recall all the things that the Shodem and Nidame forced upon us as children. Let's all get going. I would like 200 Kage Bunshins to accompany me. The purpose of any Kage Bunshins not in use is to practice chakra control until I order you to spar with someone. I want the real Naruto to start actually running to the forest's walls and back again." The third walked to the main battle area, where the real him was, and his clone melted, saying, "Okay, Naruto. Iruka here is going to watch you and help you with this part of your training." As they all parted ways, he pulled the 200 he had requested into the tower itself and locked the doors, leaving everyone else outside. "Please pick up a book or scroll and start reading. This is crucial. So please ask any questions you may have. I want you to pick up another book or scroll every time you finish this one since you have trouble remembering what you've read. Read it even if it has already been read by another clone. Start now. He departed in a flurry of leaves, saying, I will return later because I have work at the tower to do. So Iruka, how are they doing? The third Hokage asked as he returned to the tower at around noon. They have all read every document here at least 3 times, sir, Iruka stated. I think they ought to keep it in mind. The third nods and says, all right, tell Naruto to go back to the tower outside and rest. I want you to dispel each spell one at a time until you're completely gone. I'll be with him soon. As the clones started to disperse, Iruka departed. I have lunch for everyone waiting at my office. Please go and bring it back here so they can eat, Iruka said. After about 20 minutes, the third left with Iruka and a few Naruto clones in tow. He then set out the food for everyone to eat before they dispelled themselves. All right, Naruto, dispel them all and everyone come eat, he said, holding his head while sitting on the ground. After Naruto nods, he dispels groups of 100 people at once. After about 15 minutes, when everyone else has finished eating, the third person asks, any observation anyone would like to state? Does this kid know how to be scared? Ibiki inquired. His clones actually made fun of me after I used almost every mental torture I could think of on him. He passed the first test with a blank page, which is understandable. Sume inquired, I see that he has more senses. After the third laughed. Could his physical changes result in the emergence of a new bloodline? I honestly don't know. The third person said he would have to have a child before we could find out naturally. We could ask a volunteer to assist us in learning more. Kurenai and Naruto glared at Anko, who laughed and said, sorry, I'm taken. But Kurenai is able and available. How about it? Any of you ladies interested? If you want, sir, she could test him now. Before she could say or consider anything, Kurenai turned a bright red, and Kakashi said, think about it, Kurenai. All that stamina he has. He was happy to finally have the opportunity to humiliate her for all the times she had threatened his book. Well, what of it, kid? I think you got the balls to handle a woman like her, Jiraiya said, spotting an opportunity for retribution. She's probably a real wild animal in bed and a screamer. As the clones grabbed the men's feet and started swinging them around repeatedly, making them dizzy, and then released them flying toward each other, where they hit each other and fell to the ground passed out, 2 Naruto suddenly exploded from the ground at both Kakashi and Jiraiya's feet with a haymaker, hitting them both in the nuts and lifting them off the ground. The clones then walked over and performed a few hand seals, touching both men, who were immediately covered in smoke, and when the smoke was revealed, everyone started laughing. Kakashi, a 90-year-old woman with gray hair and DD-sized breasts that were sagging all the way down her belly, weighed about 400 pounds, and Jiraiya, now 60 years old, had deflated breasts. The clones took out a water balloon, held it above both men, formed a Rasengan, exploded the balloon, and let it fall on the woman. When both men awoke and looked around, they saw Naruto clones burning in the smoke. When they went to check how badly their nuts had been damaged, they immediately passed out again and discovered that they were gone. Everyone then started laughing again. The third said, was that really necessary? As he glanced at Naruto, who was grinning. I don't like seeing men pick on women, and I detest perverts, Naruto declared. Sume grinned at him and thought, loyal and protective toward your mate, huh? I don't care what people say about me, but try to hurt someone like Kurenai and you will deal with me. Hana, Kiba, and I have been smelling your scent on her and hers on you here lately, and I now know why. I assume you're trying to hide it or something. Anko keeps giving Kurenai and you the impression that she's waiting for something, and Kurenai would never kiss anyone, not even in jest like she did with a man earlier. This suggests that something is wrong between you two. Well, good luck, Kurenai. And kid, as an honorary member child, you are protected by my clan for demonstrating the values that my clan upholds, defending your pack. I think they have had enough punishment for now, Naruto, Sume said after clearing her throat. I also want to say this right now. I would like to make you an honorary member of my clan because I think you have shown everyone the truth about yourself. This means that if you or your family ever need assistance, we would be happy to assist you just as we would if you were one of our own. Do you agree? I am honored by this, Inuzaku-sama, but I do not wish to have your clan or anyone else punished by those who cannot see the truth, Naruto said, bowing as he looked at her. That's why I have. He was interrupted by Sume's dog, which leapt to his feet and bit Naruto's hand, causing it to bleed. Sume then cut her own hand and went over to have her companion release his hand, which she then grabbed and said, you can't take it back because your choice has already been made. You are forced to accept us as an honorary clan since you now carry the blood of an Inuzaku. Your family has become our family, and we will help you if you or they are ever in danger. And if yours ever needs help, I will do everything in my power to help you, as will my family, Naruto said, bowing his head. Thank you. Interesting, my wound has healed with only a mild scar, she said after Sume released his hand. Yours has, too. Let's eat now, she said, approaching the table that Iruka had prepared. "You don't realize how much honor you have just been given, Naruto," said the third as he approached. "All of their clan's companions will recognize you as one of them because her companion, the alpha male, also helped. That is a unique honor that I have only received 3 times in my lifetime." With a nod, Naruto released the jutsu on the 2 still unconscious men, while Kurenai approached and remarked, "I think she knows. Since we spend so much time together, it's likely that your scent and mine have been on each other for some time." Naruto remarked Kiba most likely received notice today as well, but she decided not to speak up. Kurenai nods and says, "You didn't have to do that for me. Loud enough for everyone to hear. I could have obtained them on my own." "What's stopping you now?" asked Naruto. "I could have given you first crack, but I reasoned that you wouldn't have been able to stop them long enough to exact revenge given how frequently the perverts have been peeking at the hot springs and Kakashi reading his books, so I slowed them down for you." When Kurenai turned around and marched back to where the 2 men were finally approaching, she said, "Now it's time to actually lose those." She pulled out a kunai, and both men paled before fleeing. Kurenai stopped in her tracks and said, "You know, I never thought of that." As she shot a glance at Naruto and Kurenai, making them realize she truly did know, Sume erupted in laughter and exclaimed, "My! It seems your trickster side has infected Kurenai. Naruto, I sure hope nothing else infects her, or we may have a whole litter of little blonde hair, red-eyed, winged tricksters running around Konoha." Naruto replied, "Well, I am sure they would be little angels. After all, men all the time say Kurenai beauty is from heaven, so." Kurenai blushed as everyone laughed, and then she struck Naruto in the head with her fist, sending him to the ground. She continued, "You know, you still have a lot to learn about woman, Naruto." As he stood up, Naruto questioned, "So are you willing to teach me?" As everyone stared at her, Kurenai flushed and asked, "What's in it for me?" "Well, how about you let me treat you like a goddess for an entire day, feeding all of your favorites while I have my cage bunchins massage your feet, air cool you with my wings, and pamper your every need, all dressed in nothing but a toga. Then fly you up into the air and hold you as we watch the sunset on a cloud," Naruto said, smirking as he approached her and whispered in her ear so no one else could hear what had just occurred to him. As the idea of what she could have him do struck, Kurenai was blown back with a nosebleed and passed out. It would be an understatement to say that everyone was in disbelief. Naruto had just defeated the village's most formidable pervert. After deciding it was safe to leave the woods, Kakashi asked, "What did you say to her, Naruto?" Naruto replied, "Out of respect for her, I refuse to say. It mostly just involved certain punishments on several men who have been perverted toward her in the past, including you and Sannin, and then forcing you to serve as her personal slave, all wearing a dress as all the woman who feel as she does, all line up and use the 1,000 years of death on you, using anything they want." Everyone laughed at Kakashi's bad luck, and he backed away and went pale. The third replied, "No, really, what did you tell her though to get that reaction out of her is unbelievable." Naruto said, "Oh, just," as he glanced at the sandane. Kurenai suddenly started to stir, wiping the blood from her nose before getting to her feet and glaring at Naruto. "You are so dead you think that night in the bath together," she said, causing everyone to gasp in shock as she realized she was not alone with Naruto and that she had just said something she couldn't deny. "Smooth Tenshi." Naruto slapped his head. The third Kurenai grumbled, "Well, I must admit, you both hid it longer than I thought you would be able to. I mean, nearly 6 weeks is pretty good in this village to have a secret." Kakashi glanced at Naruto and Kurenai and said, 6 weeks. When Jiraiya said, "Really, you have been hiding details from me, boy, what's she like?" a cage bunshin kicked him from behind and sent him flying again. "That's twice now you created those without making hand seals. How?" Shikamaru asked, raising an eyebrow. After a moment of bewilderment, Naruto remarked, "I guess I never really thought about it. Why, I've used it so much I can make smaller numbers of them without hand seals." According to Anko, making most jutsu sealless means you have completely mastered the jutsu. It's just rare for someone your age to do so is all. Naruto nods and then saw everyone looking at him and Kurenai, and he sighed and said, "Please everyone, don't tell about me and Kurenai. We really don't know what it is we feel for each other yet, and we are taking it slow and have only really just talked and had ate dinner together. The tub deal she was talking about was me in a pair of shorts and her a bikini, and she gave me a back rub when I overdid it with training. Nothing happened besides her finding a few quirks to use against me for her own fun. I don't want people to start treating her bad because of me. I know that most of you have either liked me before or were at least neutral toward me by the fact you never openly showed me any hate or had your kids act against me. I also know the fact Kyuubi's dead now will help some others changes also, but it will take time to change people's opinions, and between now and then they might harm her to harm me. Please, I beg you." as he got down on his knees, shocking everyone because he never would lower himself to anyone. "We understand, Naruto and my son, and I shall remain silent on it. We respected you as you were similar to our clan," Shibi said, the first to speak. As she patted her companion's head, Sume remarked, "You already got my silent and protection. Anyone goes to harm you or those in your pact, they have us to deal with." Shikaku replied, "It would be way too troublesome to even think about telling." Naruto and Kurenai blushed as Shuza said, "Let me know when the wedding is. I will bring the food." The rest of the group laughed. Kakashi replied, "Damn it. Asuma going to rag my ass when he finds out he was right. He told me he thought you two were getting close, but I told him it was probably just orders." With a glance in his direction, Anko questioned, "How the fuck have you lived so long?" As everyone gradually agrees with Naruto, he nods and thanks them. They then started eating. After everyone had finished eating, the third replied, "Alright Naruto, make the cage buncheons again. I want everyone to do as they did earlier except the real Naruto. I want you to spar while being asked questions you will have to answer while you fight. That way we can all judge your mental ability to think wisely under pressure." With a nod, Naruto formed the cage buncheons and inquired, "With whom will I be sparring?" With a quick mud clone, the third reached for his robes and threw them, revealing himself in his battle garments. Everyone gasped when he said, "Me?" He continued, "I don't want you to hold back. I also need to dust off some of my rust from sitting behind the desk so long for the fights. I am expecting you won't be able to hurt me. My mud clone will be asking you questions as we fight. Begin when ready." A few eyebrows were raised as Naruto nods and leaps backwards to put distance between them before he starts hand seals, which cover the air in mist. Many people thought he did it without calling the name interesting. After blowing away the mist and sending shurikens at the tree where Naruto was, the third started his own hand seals, which caused him to dissolve in water from behind the third. The real Naruto leapt and got ready for a real battle. The mud clone started talking as Naruto and the third entered the Taijutsu match. "If a high-ranking ninja from a foreign village comes to sign a peace treaty with our village, and after signing the treaty that night he conceals himself in a mask and goes and attempts to kidnap an heir to one of the clans of Konoha and was killed by the clan head of that family before he could escape, what would you do as the highest-ranking person there at the time?" "Well, I assume you're referring to the Hyuga cloud incident that I read about earlier in the tower. I would first make sure the Hyugas had not sent someone to confront the other members of his party," Naruto said, dodging a leg sweep and kicking the Sandame's head. According to the mud clone, no they hadn't. "Why?" Naruto hit the Sandame with an uppercut as the punch from Emma's staff form and replied, "Well, in that case I would have searched the nin's body and found a cloud exploding tag and a kunai from cloud. Surely if it was a kidnapping attempt then he would want to be prepared for a quick escape and confrontation. I would then jump over the wall of the clan compound and throw the kunai with the exploding tag at the wall, blowing it from the outside, and I would then put a scratch in his head marking him as a missing nin." Everyone was staring at him bewildered at this point, and the Sandame gave Naruto a mule kick, sending him flying into the air as another Naruto jumped out of the ground, grabbed his outstretched leg, and threw him. "Why would you do that, Naruto?" the mud clone inquired. Naruto said, "The answer is simple. It was chess. The kidnapping was a fake. If it would have been a simple kidnapping they would have sent a pawn or lower ranking ninja to do the actual mission instead of a knight like the cloud did. By using the knight, or in this case the very same ninja who signed the contract making him a very important piece, they knew the odds were he would be killed. By making it look like he attacked the compound and then marking him as a missing nin, you can take the evidence at the scene then to the Fire Lord and the Lightning Lord, showing the remains of the kunai were from metals can be traced back in Cloud Country, and the exploding tag would have been consistent with Tier also, and you would say that the man must have became a missing nin because of his fear of peace, making the idea we oppose peace void, and that Cloud was the real threat of going to war if Tier high-ranking ninja would be willing to break the new peace treaty the same day. If Cloud said he was not a missing nin and that we faked the evidence, then you could simply ask then why was he attacking the Hyuga compound in the first place? With all the evidence supporting our claim, then they could not admit they actually backed the kidnapping or look bad to other countries and Thier Lightning Lord, which they wouldn't, because then they would have had to pay us back for the lie with something like Thier Forbidden Scroll or one of Thier clans or bloodlines as payment. That's my opinion though, as he was sent flying backwards into a tree by Emma, who changed from a staff to an ape. The third person stopped and said, "I see you came to a better conclusion than I did back then, Naruto. I guess I got too wrapped up in the Hyuga demand for retribution to think of that." Naruto said as he got up. "That's the problem with a lot of people. They think more about their own ambition and forget we are all part of a larger picture. The village comes first and then the people. That's the lesson I learned from my father. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. However, there are times when that is wrong, when the need to do what is right, and just then when you personally go against it." When he demanded the third only for the third to burst into flames. After Naruto leapt back, creating hand seals, a water dragon struck an earth dragon, which turned into mud. A mud dragon then formed, and the wind blades struck the mud dragon, destroying it. As everyone watched, Shikakamaru stood up and yanked his father, who had removed his shirt while his clones were still silent, and asked, "How is it Naruto has advanced so fast?" Kage Bunshins, when they are dispelled, everything they learn goes back to the original. So with his large chakra reserves and ability to make so many, his training goes faster than everyone but Uchiha except Naruto. This is because he is actually getting experience using them, where Uchiha just copies it and does not actually learn to use the jutsu or what makes it tick, Shukaku said as he and Shikamaru approached the board for shoji. As he considers the potential outcomes, Shikamaru nods and asks, "Dad, exactly how long are we planning to help him train?" His eyes widen. "Until the exams." "Why?" asked Shukaku. "Thought, around 100 jutsu a day plus everything else he is learning, times a week. Naruto is definitely not someone to have against you or mess with." And he added, "It might be wise if our clan were to get on Naruto's good side like the Inuzaku did earlier. I mean, with what I have seen already of Naruto progress and improvements as well as his learning curve. Don't think just jutsu, think of everything else he is learning." By Naruto's own words, the Hokage must have had him reading some important documents to know about the kidnapping of Hinata, since only the other clans of Konoha knew the exact details besides the Hokage. For Naruto to have that kind of information means Naruto must be reading Anbu reports or the Hokage personal files. I don't believe it would be the Anbu reports though, so if he's reading the Hokage's personal files, so. I see, I do believe you are right. It seems the Sandame has things planned out for every possible equation," Shukaku said, wide-eyed, as he walked over to the Kage Bunshin, considering the situation. Unbeknownst to either Nara, a pair of insects flew to a nearby location and briefly landed on the fingers of a father and son before they nodded and went back to the papers, strategy books, and games they had brought. "Hokage-sama, I got one for him. What exactly would you do with the current situation of the Uchiha death and the fallout from it?" Inoichi asked after hearing about Naruto's involvement in the Hyuga conflict. The fighting Naruto narrowed his pupils and said with an even voice, "Well, truth is there are several things I find wrong with the current condition of the Uchiha. First is I believe that Konoha is breaking its own laws regarding the only remaining Uchiha, and I also believe that Sasuke should be given a traitor's funeral. He attempted to rape a fellow Konoha shinobi before going to an enemy ninja. I have heard people claiming he should be put on the memorial stone, and to do so would be a disgrace to not only the dead but every other ninja in Konoha forces." Inoichi inquired, "What do you mean Konoha is breaking its own law regarding Itachi?" Naruto said, "By order of the Shodem Hokage of Konoha, the council and the Hokage are not allowed to mess with clan politics. The Uchiha massacre was an internal political situation. When he was charged with their deaths, Konoha was breaking its own laws, or at least partially. Itachi lost the rights of the Uchiha clan prival edge the moment he left the village to become a missing nin. Before that we could not actually charge him, but when he did leave, Sasuke had the right to blame him with his clan's death and charge him. But now that Sasuke is dead, Konoha should reverse its stance on the Uchiha massacre. He's still guilty of all the other crimes he's committed since then, but as far as the massacre goes, Itachi is now legally being wrongly accused. I know some of you are having trouble understanding what I mean, so I will change the situation a little. Say Neji killed the entire Hyuga clan because of his father's death and that seal I read about. If he had remained in Konoha afterwards and there were no higher-ranking Hyuga, then Konoha technically could not charge him with the death of his clan. We could charge him with the death of any Konoha ninja who were on duty at the time, but everyone else would be a legal kill, at least in the eyes of the laws of Konoha. It's one of the laws I think was not thought out far enough. If Neji claimed clan politics as his motive, nobody could do jack shit about it. Am I correct, old man?" "Unfortunately you are correct," the third Hokage said, halting the match as everyone gasped. "Under that particular law, if any member of any clan killed the rest of their clan, Konoha has no actual legal law to charge them with, and if their clan had no active ninja, they could walk the streets free as a bird like nothing happened." Sume gave a whistle. "I would never have thought of it like that. I always thought that law was a good thing, but with that view it is a double-edged sword." Everyone was in disbelief as he decked Naruto. The third said, "Anyways, let's continue, shall we?" However, Naruto exploded into water. "Damn, this is tough. What's the count, Kakashi?" said the third. Kakashi responded with, 210 for you, sir, 170 for correction, 171 for Naruto. With his wings fading from his back, Naruto said, "Damn, this is harder than I thought, old man." He then fell to the ground, his kunai bunshin no jutsu blocked by a mud wall. Shino, Shikamaru, and Iruka all went wide-eyed when the third grinned and said, Well, that's official Naruto. You just reached about 1/2 of your total chakra reserves use. Throughout the remainder of the day, Naruto gained a great deal of respect and knowledge from the clan leaders. He even went so far as to faint and burn all of his Kage Bunshin in the process. I can't believe he was able to keep up with me for that long. What was the total, Kakashi? Exclaimed the Sandame, who was on his knees and panting. Kakashi replied, 610 for you and 490 for him, sir. He learned several from you during combat and turned them back on you. I must say his ability to learn jutsu is nearly as good as a Sharingan, with it being better. Both Shino and his father smirked in agreement, as did Shikamaru and his father. The third replied, I see. I think you really have not understood Naruto enough yet, Kakashi. The fact he is not coping these just you but actually learning them means Naruto is better. Receiving multiple nods. Okay everyone. Thank you all for your help today. We got a lot accomplished. Tomorrow is the city-wide funeral service for the Hyuga clan. There will be no training tomorrow, but do not come to the funeral unequipped. We can't afford to be caught off guard with the threat of war hanging over our heads. Everyone is dismissed, said Kakashi, rubbing the back of his head embarrassed. After Anko and Kurenai carried Naruto and Shushin away and placed him in bed, Kurenai gave him a quick peck on the lips and muttered, I'm proud of you, my hero. Konoha had a depressing day. The following day, today was the day of the Hyuga's funeral. Instead of using the henge that he was supposed to hide on today, Naruto took out a cloak that Anko had bought him as a gift for mastering the Doden Jutsu that she wanted him to master. This one was entirely black, with a hood that completely obscured his head, allowing only the front to reveal his face. It was similar to what Anbu wore, which may not be too far-fetched given that Anko is currently Konoha's second highest Anbu, right behind Ibiki. He had his weapon pouches on both legs and his vest with all of his scrolls underneath it. Jiraiya had given him a book about seals his father had written during yesterday's training, and Naruto quickly made one for each of his hands and kunai pouches. After finding one that he could truly use, he only needed to send a small chakra burst to complete the quick summon seal, and he was holding a kunai. He knocked on Kurenai's door. He enjoyed waking up with her by his side, but she hurried off to begin getting ready after lying next to him once more the night before. When Kurenai said, "Come in," in a dejected tone, Naruto opened the door and discovered her dress on the bed. As Kurenai was crying, he approached her, sat down on his knees, drew his hood back, and embraced her, saying softly, "I know, I miss her also." She questioned, "Why did this have to happen?" After a few minutes had passed. "I don't know, Tenchi, but I do know one thing," Naruto said, closing his eyes. "She's watching over us both now, making sure we'll be okay." Kurenai withdrew and asked, "How do you know that?" while meeting his eyes. Naruto stated, "Because it was her gift to me that killed the Kyuubi. I know the old man said it was my bloodline, but I think it was her who gave me a new chance at life. I think Hinata was the one who really killed it so we could be together. She is also watching out for you because you were the closest thing she had to a mother in a long time. She's giving you a chance for happiness with me because she cared for us both. Why else would so many people readily accept our relationship when they found out? I mean, you're the most beautiful woman in this village, with nearly every male in the village wanting to be with you, but you never found one that would make you feel the way you do with me now. Until recently I was the village demon. For us to have what we have now, it must be because we have someone looking out for us, and I think it's Hinata." "You're right, I think so too. It would be like her," Kurenai said with a smile. Naruto nods and continues, "That's why today, when I go to the funeral, I am going to smile. When I say goodbye to her, a smile and a thank you for what she has done. I won't let her memory be a sad one." "You're right, I won't cry either unless it's tears of joy," Kurenai said, nodding. After embracing her once more and holding her close for a few moments, Naruto released his hold and met her eyes. She met his gaze, and they leaned forward slowly before closing their eyes and giving each other a real kiss. No hiding, no regrets, no secrets. They saw nothing but love when they looked into each other's eyes as they parted ways. "Promise me something," said Naruto. Naruto remarked, "Promise me that if something happens today you will live and go on," as Kurenai appeared perplexed. With wide eyes, Kurenai uttered the words, "Nothing's going to happen." Naruto replied, "I know, you're right, nothing's going to happen, but if it is, promise me you will protect yourself. I know you strong enough to do it, but I will feel better if you promised me that you will protect yourself, and if something happened to me you will go on and live your life as happily as you can with no regrets. Please, I just got a bad feeling and I won't be able to save everyone if I have to worry about you." With her back to him, Kurenai got up and said, "Only if you promise me you will come back to me. You never go back on your word, so promise me if something does happen you will come back to me alive." She then grabbed a hairbrush from her dresser. "All right, I swear," Naruto said, closing his eyes. Kurenai nods, drops the hairbrush she was holding, and before Naruto knew it, he was being pushed onto the bed, Kurenai on top of him, her head in the bend of his neck, holding him firmly. She was weeping and said, "Please don't leave me, I love you, I know I do, every time we're apart I feel pain, I feel you when you're sad, when you're hurting, when you're angry I feel your pain and you feel mine, you are my everything, please don't leave me for anything, I can't live without you, please come back to me." Naruto was taken aback. Kurenai has never shown her feelings to anyone for some reason. He could feel hers, but never in this way. It was flooding him and it felt like a dam broke. "I love you also, I never knew love until you came into my life, I would die without you and I won't die without you in my arms," he said softly as he slowly wrapped his arm around her. Kurenai said, "So there's no going back now, we finally know what we feel, huh?" Although she had no idea that hearing those 3 words would make her so happy. Naruto replied, "I knew all along what it was, I just never knew the name of it." Kurenai laughed before a burst of light filled the room, and they both sighed and exclaimed, "Anko, you're dead." She said, "You both make a cute couple, cousin, but I must know, what the hell happened to you? Why do you look so different?" Naruto was startled by the laugh, which was definitely not Anko's, and both of them looked up to see Sakura. Before he burst out laughing, Naruto put his head back on a pillow and said, "I guess I should say I'm sorry for lying to you all these years." Sakura raised her hand and replied, "Don't worry about it, I understand completely, Kurenai and I had a little talk the other day and she told me about how you both got together. I also understand why we never had a chance as children, but there's no way in hell you're getting away with not helping me get rid of this damn woman in my head." Kurenai asked, "So how did you get in?" as Naruto laughed. Sakura stated, "Your other roommate let me in when her and Iruka left. They said you both were still here after I told them I knew about you both and that you're my cousin. They told me to prepare for a shock, but you look like your father now. What happened to your whiskers?" "The fox is dead somehow. When I was in my sexy no jutsu activated the Uzumaki bloodline, and since the fox was my inner self," Sakura exclaimed as Naruto stood up after Kurenai, breaking the bones in his back before removing his cloak and spreading his wings. Sakura nods as she says, "It died and your body made you an angel. Kakashi sensei is right. You really are the most surprising ninja ever. I wonder what he will do when he sees you. I mean, he was your father's student." "He almost fainted," Naruto remarked. Sakura's eyes widened once more, and she said, "He already know." Naruto responds by nodding. "Yeah, some stuff has happened lately that I am involved in you're currently not allowed to know, and if you were not family you would not know about this yet either. The Sannin plans to tell the entire village later." "Sakura, do you have your ninja equipment with you?" "No, why, it's just a funeral," Sakura remarked. Kurenai responded, "Sakura, come over here to my dresser and stock up on weapons. I am going to use my rank to allow you to know that Konoha may be attacked at any time now. All Anbu and Junin have been told to prepare for an attack in case we are attacked." Sakura questioned, "Who's going to attack us?" in shock. Naruto looked at Kurenai and he said, "Remember the snake bastard we met in the Forest of Death, Orochimaru? Him and the Sound may attack, and we may also be attacked by Suna as well, so watch out for them. For now don't attack them unless they attack first, but keep that in mind in case of a double cross. We believe it's going to happen during the Chunin exams, but because of what has happened it may be any time now. That's all I can tell you." After squinting, Sakura uttered, "Sound the village Sasuke was going to go to." When she uttered Sasuke's name, Sakura immediately began to arm, and Naruto nodded, sensing the venom in her voice. Kurenai replied, "Naruto, can you give us a minute alone? I need to help Sakura get some stuff." After giving a nod, Naruto leaves the room. After a few minutes, Naruto observes that she has slightly changed her clothes and has a few noticeable accessories underneath them as they both leave the room. He nods, draws his hood up to conceal himself, approaches Kurenai, takes her arm, links it to hers, and leads her out the door. Naruto said, "Remember Sakura, don't tell anyone what you have heard, and if you need me, call me today. Call me Maelstrom." Sakura approached them and they walked together. Sakura said, "Why not Tenchi? It suits your new look," after both women had given him a look. Naruto replied, "True, but my name also means Maelstrom besides fish cakes, and if you saw how I fight now you would believe it suits me perfect." Snorting, Sakura replied, "Whatever Maelstrom, I know you're only changing your name so you could be seen together with your Tenchi anyways. I will play along, but I think you should be Tenchi." Naruto nods, and the two of them continue walking to the funeral. Sakura approached Tenten and Ino and sat down with them, while Naruto stood by Kurenai, who was standing next to Kiba and Shino, who raised an eyebrow, but that was all. As Naruto walked in front of the crowd, the Sannin gave him a long look before nodding slowly and saying, "It is a sad day in the history of the village. Several days ago this village had a terrible incident where enemy ninjas snuck into the village and set traps to destroy the Hyuga clan. It has been determined that they were aided by a fellow Konoha citizen. This caused many people to murmur because they had not heard of it. Many of the residents were even more shocked when the Hokage declared, "This person not only is believed to be responsible with aiding the enemy into entering Konoha but planned to defect from the village but not before he attempted to rape the heiress of the Hyuga clan." Everyone who was unaware gasped when the third person said, "This person while attempting to carry out this act killed her but not before she killed him also in self-defense. The person was none other than our own Sasuke Uchiha." This caused a number of council members to collapse in their seats. As two Anbu appeared holding Sasuke's body, they swiftly threw it into the air while making hand signals and releasing two enormous fireballs that cremated the body. The Hokage then declared, "It is for this reason that I have decided on this type of funeral for Sasuke." The Hokage continued, "He will be marked down as a traitor to Konoha and will forever be remembered as a disgrace, never being honored. Now that his body has been taken care of, I would like to continue with the funeral service for the honorable Hyuga clan. I would like for everyone to bow their heads as the gongs are rung 12 times in memory of them." After everyone had bowed their heads, a loud gong audible. Naruto lowered his head, listened to the gong, and closed his eyes as he considered Hinata. That's when he sensed it. He screamed, "Genjutsu!" As he opened his eyes and saw feathers, he then rammed his hands together and swiftly released a huge chakra pulse that dispelled it on everyone within 100 yards of him. Kurenai replied, "Niece, I had just noticed it a moment before you did." At that moment, there were multiple explosions in the vicinity of Konoha. The third person on a platform called out, "All Chunin and Junins are to go intercept the attacking army. Genin are to aid in moving all civilians to the shelters. Namikaze. It seems Shukaku is here. Take care of him." After that, as Sannin, you are to aid where you feel you would be of most use. The crowd gasped at the name, and then Naruto swiftly threw off his cloak, spread his wings, and glanced at Kurenai before taking off, shocking everyone. As she ran toward the gates, Kurenai remarked, "Kiba, you aid Shino in helping evacuate the civilian. Shino, your rank is now active. You are in charge of evacuation Chunin." With a glance at Shino, Kiba exclaimed, "Chunin, what the hell is going on?" As his bugs flew out of his jacket, Shino grinned and remarked, "That is not for you to know right now. My bugs detect several people heading this way who seem to be our enemies." The Hokage saw Amanda with Orochimaru on its head and hastily removed his robes. Then he noticed the cage there as well, and he started to run in its direction. When Jiraiya saw multiple summoned snakes emerge, he immediately fled to the west gates. Jiraiya had been behind the Sandaime when Naruto had warned about the Genjutsu. Naruto quickly made his way to where he saw Shukaku after leaving the outdoor funeral. As he flew in its direction, he noticed a number of sand and sound nins entering the walls. He put his hands together quickly and said, "Taju Kage Bunshin no just you." As they all looked up at the angel-filled sky, 1200 Kage Bunshins appeared flying in the air, stopping the force of the attacking and defending ninja. The Bunshin then took out kunais and threw them at the ground, flashing through Han's seals, and said, "Kunai Bunshin no Jutsu." The 1200 kunais swiftly turned into 12,000, covering the area where the ninja were killing about 100 sound nins and 20 sand nins at that point. They scattered throughout the city, attacking the enemies and eliminating easy targets before moving in waves and clusters toward Shukaku. When the Konoha ninjas saw the fear on the faces of the sand and sound ninjas, they grinned and started fighting with newfound vigor. As it got closer to the village walls, Naruto saw Shukaku smash multiple trees as he charged at him while flying. Then he called forth a kunai, wrapped it in an exploding tag, and threw it at the demon as he flashed his own hand seals. The kunai then multiplied into 30, and then, out of nowhere, hundreds more came flying past, striking Shukaku in various places and completely enveloping him in explosions. With a sly smile, Naruto said, "You're not so tough." Naruto's smirk vanished as he had to hurl a Hiraishin kunai at the ground as the demon launched a huge blast of air at all the flying Bunshins. At that moment, a scream was heard from inside the smoke from all the explosions, and the smoke was sucked away as mouths were visible all over the demon's body, sucking in enormous amounts of air. Almost 900 of them were destroyed in an instant. With a sneer, the sand and sound forces resumed their fierce battle. When he saw that the majority of his clones had been destroyed and that the damage was gradually being repaired, Naruto scowled. When he realized he was getting close to Shukaku's feet, he smirked and began to flash through his hand seals. He flew toward the demon's feet and slammed them into the ground, instantly sending Shukaku skyward. Gambunta appeared beneath him, yelling, "What the hell was that on my head?" He turned to see Shukaku hit the ground. Naruto landed on Gambunta's nose, saying, "Sorry about that, boss. He was getting too close to Konoha and I need your help defeating him." Gambunta began to perspire. Gambunta observed Shukaku rising and replied, "I see. You owe me for this, kid. Him. There's the spot. Look on his head. You see that kid asleep on it, that is the source of his power. Wake the kid up and the demon will go back to sleep. Can you help distract him a few minutes? Naruto asked, nodding. I will kill you, Angel, and your little frog too, yelled Shukaku. Sweating, Gambunta drew his dagger and uttered, I'm neither a frog nor a little bub, let's dance. Gambunta leapt at Shukaku and severed his arm, while Naruto grinned and took off as Naruto flew beneath both. He threw another kunai with an exploding tag on it at Shukaku's tail, multiplied it, and then flew up the backside of the sand demon as he screamed about its arm. His tail was blown off, causing it to scream out and fly into Gambunta's arms, whereupon Shukaku and Gambunta shared a kiss. Both of them screamed simultaneously, I'm going to kill you, as they jumped backwards while gagging. Gambunta then attacked with his dagger, and Shukaku grabbed his tail and turned it into a club, and they started fighting. After witnessing the kiss and the alleged weapon fight, Naruto started to perspire and looked around to see what he could do. He then grinned and produced as many cage bunchins as he could, which flew into the trees and scattered ninja wire everywhere before using Rasengans to bring down a number of trees. With the help of the wires, they started flapping their wings and gradually lifted the log, which they then flew toward the sand demon's backside. Naruto flew in the center of the two fighting gates and screamed, Konoha Ultimate Secret Taijutsu, 1000 feet Tree of Death. The tree flew exactly where Shukaku's ass should have been, causing the demon to scream once more as it flew toward Manda. Orochimaru and the Yondaime Kazekage leapt off Manda's head after the Sandame landed in front of him a few minutes earlier and launched a huge mud dragon at Manda, forcing the snake to dodge. Ah, sensei, it's good to see you again. Tell me, have you come to offer me help destroying the leaf? Orochimaru said as they touched down. Sarutobi replied, No, Orochimaru, I can't believe you would stoop so low as to attack your home village. Looking at the area where Naruto and Shukaku were fighting, Orochimaru remarked, What a shame. Tell me, what's with the angel I have seen? Ah yes, I think you are not familiar with Naruto Namikaze, the Tenshi Sannin of Konoha, Sarutobi said with a laugh. You lie, there is no Tenshi Sannin and no Namikazes. The last died out saving this pathetic village, Orochimaru said, squinting his eyes. Sarutobi replied, Ah yes, remember how he beat Kyuubi? That was his son. Orochimaru's eyes widened momentarily at that moment. An explosion occurred behind him, and he witnessed Shukaku, one of the snakes, crushing Manda. At that moment, Gambunto landed on top of Shukaku, further crushing Manda, and yelled, Anyone for a sandwich. When Orochimaru realized that no one was paying attention, he quickly called forth the grasscutter and spat it at the Sandame, who was examining the summons and demons. After the sword pierced his stomach, causing him to widen his eyes, he stared at it for a moment before he began to stagger slowly, already feeling the effects of the poison. When Naruto saw Gambunta land on the demon, he was flying after it and jumped again, saying, Anyone for a sandwich. Naruto laughed at the joke until he caught a glimpse of the Sandame stumbling slightly while holding a sword in his stomach. "NNNNNO" was Naruto's scream as he rushed over, grabbed the Hokage, and took off for the hospital. He released his grip on Gambunta, causing it to return to the summon world, and turned to face the smug Kazekage and the smirking Orochimaru. When Naruto got to the hospital, he hurried inside, saw a number of medics, grabbed one, and yelled, "Get me some doctors now." He then let out enough ki to make the doctor throw up a few seconds after the medic nodded and fled. Several people arrived and gasped upon seeing the Hokage when he left with the Hokage and a number of medics. One took off the sword, began tending to him, scowled, and said, "He's been severely poisoned, I need him taken to ICU immediately." When Naruto saw Iruka with his arm in a sling, he turned and rushed toward the exit, grabbing the sword after giving it a quick glance. "Iruka, are you okay?" he asked. "Yes, my arm's broke and I'm running low on chakra, but other than that, I'm fine," Iruka said, turning to face Naruto. "Why have you come here? I assumed you would still be engaged in combat." Naruto said, "The Sandames have been critically wounded," as he peered out the window and saw Shukaku approaching the village once more. "Are you still able to run?" Astonished to learn that the Hokage was not in action, Iruka responded, "Yeah." "Good," said Naruto, "I got a mission for you." When Iruka saw the glare Naruto gave him, he was silent and could only nod. "Naruto, he said. "You must locate Ibiki and inform him that I need him to get all of the ninja ready for a counterattack." Naruto said, "I'm going to breach the enemy's defenses." Naruto nods, and for the first time in a long time, Iruka leaps away in fear. As he shot into the air, Naruto swiftly flapped his wings, glanced at the sword, and uttered the words, "Let's go find your master." Naruto quickly flew toward Shukaku again, and when he got close enough he threw Grass Cutter as Shukaku yellow eye piercing it, making the demon scream as Naruto flew at the head of the demon, who was thrashing about, grabbing the sleeping Gaara, yanking him free of the demon's body as he flew as fast as he could toward the sky. When it got to the point he thought he couldn't breathe, he began to spin as he pulled his wings around both him and Gaara, and then fell at terminal velocity at the ground, and when he was about 1,000 feet from the ground he opened his wings, letting go of Gaara, who slammed into the ground. Even when the sand caught him several bones were broken, and Naruto using his speed grabbed the sword that was laying in the middle of sand, flying toward where Manda was again with the Kazekage and Orochimaru on top. Both men were smirking as a sonic boom was heard, and they looked toward their left and saw something flying across the ground at speeds they could not follow. All they saw was the dust trail behind it as it approached, and Orochimaru said, "Manda, look out." Orochimaru and the Kazekage both jumped away as Naruto flew past them in the air, forcing both of them to look up as he threw the sword into the Kazecage's heart as he spun quickly, losing his speed, and yelled out, "Orochimaru, today you die." Manda looked and screamed out as Naruto pulled up under its belly, slamming the sword into its skin and pulling it as he flew up the snake's body. "Well, if it's not the Kyuubi brat," Orochimaru said. He grinned and said, "Tell me, were Sensei's last moments agonizing?" Naruto grabbed the grass cutter and flashed through hand signs as he charged at the Kazecage's body, slicing through Orochimaru's body, which fell over dead, shocking him because it was Mizuki, not Orochimaru. Looking around, Naruto saw that Orochimaru was nowhere to be found, so he let his rage get the better of him and flew toward the city's walls, where he saw a fresh wave of enemy forces approaching, this time wearing Chunin and Junin vests. So he used Genin and Mercs as cannon fodder to tire our troops out, he thought, closing his eyes. After landing next to him, Ibiki, Kakashi, Guy, and Jiraiya asked, "What do you think, Gaki?" All four men turned to face Naruto when he said, "Tell everyone to fall back behind the walls and hold on, Kakashi. If I don't survive this, take care of Kurenai and Sakura for me." Jiraiya said, "What are you planning, Gaki?" with narrowed eyes. As he slammed the grass cutter into the ground in front of him and then flew in front of the walls, all of Naruto's cage bunshin landed around the outside walls. Naruto opened his eyes slowly and saw that all of the cage bunshins had chakra strings attached to them. "A bloodbath," Naruto said. Jiraiya replied, "Ibiki, do what the Gaki said. I don't know what he plans, but I got a bad feeling about this." After Naruto's sudden chakra explosion, which spread to all of his clones, Kakashi turned to Guy and remarked, "You didn't, did you?" With wide eyes, Guy added, "No, I swear." The chakra then exploded in Naruto's body once more, spreading to all of his clones. A third and a fourth explosion followed. Naruto opened his eyes and said, "Today you will all die. Tell the Shinigami to have Orochimaru room waiting for him." He then flashed through his hand seals as chakra started to seep out of each of his and his clones' wings. They all greeted the attacking army with Daikamaitachi Great Cutting Whirlwind, and flapped their wings multiple times as wind blades flew into the air before Naruto's body exploded a fifth time as the chakra wave passed from him to each of his clones. At the moment of release, the wind condensed together and became self-reliant. As the attack started, Jiraiya used chakra to hold onto the roof and exclaimed, "My God," as he collapsed to the ground, unconscious, his body slowly being drawn toward what he had just created. Naruto's clones all exploded. Jiraiya swiftly called forth a toad, which grabbed Naruto by the tongue and yanked him away. As a number of Konoha shinobi arrived, Kakashi gazed at the devastation, and one of them questioned, "What is that?" According to Jiraiya, it's an attack that has not been recreated in nearly 200 years. It's called the living maelstrom. Nothing survives it. It is all wind. The color you see is because of all the dirt and trees that are being cut to ribbons in it. The last person to create it was the Sixth Realm Sage, and it cost him his life. Nothing any of us do can stop it. Once it starts, it moves on its own until it wears itself out. "How powerful is this attack, Jiraiya-sama?" inquired Kakashi. After a pause, Jiraiya remarked, "You've been to Wave before, right, Kakashi?" He replied, "Yeah, not too long ago." "Why?" Jiraiya replied, "The bridge they built, the Great Naruto Bridge. How wide is it?" 2.5 miles, Kakashi asked. "Why?" Jiraiya turned to him and said, "Before 200 years ago, that stretch where the bridges was once land that connected Wave to the Fire Country. That attack destroyed the land and create that channel between Wave and Fire Country. To think the Gaki here just created the same attack." The toad was still holding Naruto, and everyone was staring at him when a Chunin questioned, "Who is he, Jiraiya-sama? He looks familiar, but I can't place him." A high-pitched scream and the words, "I will kill you, Angel," came from inside the attack as Jiraiya introduced Naruto Namikaze, son of the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha and the Tenshi Sannin. The demon Shukaku was 2 miles wide, moving slowly away from the village, and anything that came near it would be sucked into it and cut to pieces. The sand and sound armies were fleeing as quickly as they could in retreat, and each man could see it being pulled away in the attack. For those of you trying to imagine what it looks like, it's an F5 tornado. The first wave of the attack had ended, and a number of good men and women had been killed, but the consequences of this attack would change the world forever. The day was the birth of the Tenshi Sannin, the angel of death, and the day that Konoha's simple lives were changed forever to what was yet to be determined. There was only silence as everyone slowly went about searching for any dead bodies, wounded allies, or remaining enemies. Jiraiya, who was sitting in a chair and staring out the window, said, "It's about time you woke up, kid," as Naruto awoke to find himself in a hospital room, stretching and snarling. "You have been absent for 2 days. What happened?" Naruto asked, his mouth moving. Jiraiya said, "You tell me." After giving him a look, "I'll complete the details." After giving it some thought, Naruto remarked, "I recall that when I was battling the demon with Gambunta's assistance, the old man was stabbed by a sword. When the doctors took the sword away, I grabbed the old man and flew him to the hospital. Once there, I saw Iruka and instructed him to have Ibiki get everyone ready. Then I grabbed Gaara from Shukaku's head and flew as high as I could, blinding him with the sword as I flew back toward him. I then used my speed to go toward Manda, Orochimaru, and the cage, mimicking the move I saw Lee use on Gaara during the exams. I spun really quickly as we fell, letting him go at the last second before he hit the ground. I heard Gaara scream in pain, so I know he was still alive but was really hurt. At the last moment, the sand came to his rescue anyway. I got the sword ready as I flew close to the ground toward Manda. I then flew up Manda's belly and dragged it through his skin, forcing the cage and Orochimaru to jump off. I threw the sword at the cage, killing him as I went by him and started to fly. As he taunted me about the old man, I turned to face Orochimaru, slowed down, and seized the sword. After that, I charged him and slashed him with the sword, but as soon as he was dead, the traitor Mizuki's body took his place. When I saw more troops approaching, I became enraged and realized that the first wave was just cannon fodder to wear down our troops. Since I knew my wings would soon be gone and I wanted to try to reduce their number as much as possible, I felt my chakra was a little over half full. I therefore opened the gates and used the chakra boost with the Daikama Itachi and my cage bunchins to try to wound or kill as many as I could. I was unsure of what to anticipate because I had never opened the gates before. I don't remember anything else after that. "How did you learn to open the gates?" inquired Jiraiya. "Well, I saw Lee do it during the preliminary round, and Kakashi-sensei told us all about them during Lee's match, so I thought that if everyone had them, I could probably find them the same way I found Kyuubi in my mind," Naruto said. Wrinkled his nose. "I only had to go through a few tunnels, and it wasn't too difficult to find them. They matched Kyuubi's cage in size. I only needed to mentally pull on each handle to determine why." "Never use that attack like that again unless you have no other option," Jiraiya sighed, adding, "and never use it near Konoha ever again." When you factored in your chakra levels from the gate's release, your little move was equivalent to about 6 tails of Kyuubi at full power, an attack that could have destroyed our enemies and the entire village. Fortunately, it pursued them and killed a few, but many fled. It could have easily turned back on us, and nobody could have stopped it, but only those who were caught in the first 5 minutes of the attack perished. Actually, the only person who ever managed to perform that level of jutsu as well as you ended up dying in the attack." These words sobered Naruto, who then inquired, "Why are you here? You need more than just sitting here checking on me and telling me not to use that attack, given the current situation." Jiraiya said, "Sensei is in a coma." As she peered out the window right now, "The doctors have taken care of him as best they can. I was asked to assume the role of Godem Hokage by the elders, but I declined." "I understand that." Naruto sighed. "The village depends too much on your spy network. Additionally, you must travel in order to pay homage to the village economy from your Icha Paradise books." After giving Naruto a quick glance, Jiraiya remarked, "So Sensei really did show you his private files?" "Yes, I read things I don't believe I was supposed to read," Naruto admitted. "One of them had a connection to my past that I was unaware of anyway. Enough about that. What's going on if you're not accepting the job?" "At the moment, the council is in disarray," Jiraiya said. "Danzo and the civilians are engaged in a power struggle with the clan heads, though they lack the authority to do so on their own. The advisors are making every effort to keep them under control. I want you to assume the village's leadership in a moderate manner." After a moment of widening his eyes, Naruto questioned, "How long is temporary?" "I intend to pursue Tsunade so that she will return and assume the title of Godem," Jiraiya stated. "I can't leave until the village is a little more organized, even though it will be difficult, or it will demolish before I can locate her. That's where you're useful." I understand, Naruto said quietly. I want to be Hokage, but I know I'm not ready yet. Well, I'll do it, but I have something in the Hokage's office that will make it simpler to get Tsunade to return to Konoha. With a glance at Naruto, Jiraiya questioned, really, what's that? Jiraiya's eyes widened when Naruto said, her grandchild's birth certificate. That's not funny, kid, Jiraiya said. Tsunade never gave birth to a child. I have a blank scroll that I can borrow, Naruto said. As he took one out and threw it, Jiraiya said, yeah, why? Naruto bit his thumb and drew something inside, then used his blood to draw a seal. He then threw the scroll back to Jiraiya and said, open it. Jiraiya said, I can't. It's a blood seal. After glancing at the seal, you or your family alone could. Have fun with me, Naruto said with a smile. Try opening it. Looking at the seal, Jiraiya felt sick to his stomach, bit his thumb, and wiped the blood across it. He was shocked when the seal opened and revealed the kanji for grandfather, and he gave Naruto a look that said, you have 1 minute to tell me what the hell's going on. All I know is what my father's and my own birth certificate stated, Naruto remarked. The only two people who can actually explain what is happening are Tsunade and someone who is in a coma somewhere in this village. After pondering for a while, Jiraiya said, all right, I'll ask her what's going on. However, I would like to take those records you mentioned with me. What about the village and the council now? I have a plan, but I need Ibiki, Kakashi, you, and 2 of Ibiki's most dependable Anbu who support the Sandaime and like me to meet me outside the council chamber in an hour. Naruto stated. I believe I have permission to depart. Jiraiya replied, yeah, your healing factor is still as good as when you had Kyuubi. What fallout is there about me right now in the village? Naruto asked, nodding. I'm referring to what has come to light and what people think of me. All right, Angel of Death, Jiraiya said. You are essentially the day's hero. News of your fight with Shukaku, defeating the Kazekage, defeating Orochimaru, and driving out the second wave of adversaries has gone viral except for those who knew you from your training. They only know you as Naruto Namikaze, son of the Yondaime, and not Uzumaki. So they don't know about Kyuubi's death either, Naruto said, nodding. Jiraiya replied, no, Kakashi, Kurenai, Sume and myself have all been keeping watch over you while you were out to make sure no one tried to take you out while you were vulnerable. All right, that's good for now, Naruto said, nodding. I'll get ready and get those things I requested. I'll see you outside the entrance. Where is that sword I had, by the way? Grasscutter, Jiraiya blinked. Why did I find it in a scroll here? Will you please seal it in my arm? Said Naruto. It's a good sword for the way I fight. Be careful because this sword can be called to Orochimaru if it's unsealed and not being held, Jiraiya said, nodding as she swiftly removed it from a scroll and sealed it into Naruto's arm. After nodding, Naruto sighed and asked, so how are you doing, Tenshi? As Jiraiya walked away. I was so worried you would never wake up, said Kurenai, who was crying when she appeared on the shimmering wall across from Naruto. As she approached where he was getting dressed, she said, do you realize how foolish that was? Head bowed, Naruto uttered, I only wanted to keep my beloved people safe. I was aware that you and many of my friends would have perished if those other nins had shown up. I did what I did because I couldn't bear that thought. I apologize for causing you any anxiety, but I fulfilled my pledge. You idiot, Kurenai said, turning him around and slapping him across the face before embracing him and sobbing into his shoulder. Your pledge, your own attack almost killed you. You would have perished if Jiraiya-sama hadn't been saved by a toad. Is it possible for me to continue without you? The idea of killing myself makes my heart hurt. So I would have done it. I can't bear the idea of losing another loved one because I've already lost one. Please don't repeat that behavior. I apologize, Naruto said, lowering his head and resting his chin on her head. Sometimes I am such a fool. All I wanted was to keep everyone safe. I never intended to hurt you because I love you. I understand your grief and anxiety. Please pardon this idiot. I also love you, Kurenai said. Just be more cautious, please. She chuckled a little and said, do you realize how difficult it is to find a good man in a village of perverts? Naruto chuckled and stepped back to finish dressing after scratching his head and saying, it just means I am even more valuable. He then took a punch to the arm. Kurenai walks up behind him, putting her arms around his chest, rubbing her hands across it, and whispering into his ear, you know, if you start to sleep like this at home, I might give you a little reward. She slowly lets her hand slide down to his crotch and squeeze it, causing his eyes to widen and turn beet red as he blew back with a nosebleed. Kurenai notices that he is now shirtless and wearing pants. Kurenai thought, he's so innocent, and laughed. I'm fortunate to have him. I'm going to tell him how I truly feel and stop living with regret. I will no longer keep my feelings to myself. After a short while, Naruto got up and noticed that the blood had already been cleaned up. He ignored Kurenai's laughter and said, you know, that was sneaky. Thanks for bringing me some of my cloths, Kurenai said, pouting as he put on his cloak and shirt. I assume it was you. Kurenai nods and Naruto suddenly materializes behind her, startling her since she hadn't noticed him move. He rubbed his hands across her stomach and whispered into her ear, "You know, with you crossing that line I can return the favor." As she recovered from a nosebleed, he whispered, "Rub something also. Perhaps I can?" He ran each thumb across the spot directly beneath her breast, causing her to tremble. As he cleaned her of the blood, Naruto grinned and said, "I love you, my angel, but I will stop at nothing to keep you safe." Naruto said, "I have to leave." As Kurenai stood back up, "Please let the Genin sensei know that they should all gather in the Hokage's office in about 4 hours. Naruto shushined away after Kurenai nodded, and as she walked away, Kurenai grinned and said, "Go get them, my hero." Ibiki, Kakashi, 2 Anbu, and Jiraiya were all standing there when Naruto arrived from his stop at the Hokage office. He questioned, "Have you informed them of what's going on?" Jiraiya replied, "Yeah, I told them about my plan to get Tsunade." "What's the plan?" "I need all 3 of you to cooperate and pretend that everything is my idea and that you're in favor of it." Naruto said, "The elders ought to be aware of what is happening when I begin to apply the lessons they taught me. When I call for these 2 Anbu, I want them to stand in prisoner formation around Danzo," Ibiki said, causing all 5 of them to gape at him. "You're going to have us arrest Danzo?" Ibiki asked. "No," said Naruto. "I'm going to use blackmail to force Danzo to comply with my demands. I possess the Sandium's files pertaining to all of Danzo's illicit actions. He will be forced to follow my instructions after I reveal a few of them, or I will kill him. All I want is for these 2 to hold him in check so he will believe that he has seen what is in these files and should pay attention. I learned some basic investigation techniques from you. If all else fails, this is going to be a good show," Ibiki said with a smile. "Don't look into it, but if I ask for it, act like you know everything and agree with me and hand it to me," Naruto said, nodding and passing the file to Ibiki. "Everyone is prepared." After everyone nods, Naruto unlocked the grass cutter, accelerated toward the door, and then as he landed, he said, "By Article 5 Paragraph 23 of the Village Charter," before his wings popped out and he briefly flew into the air. He then shifted his body and kicked the doors to the council chamber, breaking them off the hinges and sliding across the room. Martial law has been imposed on the village as he released enough ki to cause multiple council members to urinate. He ordered all civilian council members to resign until village security was fully restored. After the 2 elders exchanged a sly smile, Danzo remarked, "By whose orders?" "My name is Naruto Namikaze, and I am the Tenshi Sannin of Konoha. I am currently the 3rd highest military official in the village, directly beneath the Sandiumi Hokage and Jiraiya of the Sannins." Naruto narrowed his eyes and said, "Anbu." 2 Anbu then appeared next to Danzo, holding a kunai at his neck. "Until the Sandaime gets better or a replacement is named, I am in charge of the village government. You've been warned. Danzo, I received all of the Sandiume's files on you, including the documentation of your abduction of infants from Fire Country orphanages and training them to be your personal army in order to take over this village. That is treason, and I will personally kill you if you disobey my commands and turn into a useful instrument for this village. I now gave the order for every civilian council member to depart. Failing to do so will be regarded as treason and is punishable by death during times of war." Ibiki thought, "I think I created another Anko. I am so proud." As he blasted another shot of ki around the room, all of the civilian council members left, and everyone else was staring at Danzo with hatred. "Now leaves. I will not repeat myself," he said. "Now, Danzo, I know your little rude army is still around," Naruto said with a smile. "During the invasion, my Kage Bunshin observed them guarding your building. I'm giving you a chance to change how this village views you, or I'll kill you the way I killed the Kage. Your decision." After considering his options, Danzo said, "Fine, I will follow your order, for the time being." "All right," Naruto said, nodding. "I want you to accompany these 2 men to Anbu headquarters. Anko is now directly in charge of you and will answer to Ibiki. You must provide her with all of your men's details, including names, skill levels, bloodlines, and present whereabouts. Now, Root will do as Anbu and the Hokage say. Danzo, if you consider becoming a martyr, keep in mind that any further recruitment or disobedience on your or their part will result in your immediate death. Only as long as there are followers will you be able to be a martyr. I promise that if necessary, I can locate all of your men and murder them. Now go." After Danzo took the 2 Anbu, Naruto grinned, had 2 clones fix the door, and said, "Hello again." Hamaru questioned, "What was that all about, Naruto?" After witnessing the heartless Naruto just a moment before and the lovable, silly one now, Naruto stated, "As you are undoubtedly already aware, Jiraiya intends to depart in order to retrieve Tsunade and have her return to assume the role of Godem Hokage. The village needs a strong leader while he is gone, and Sandiumi is in a coma because the council's arguments are throwing the village out of balance. I turned the village over to the military council using the laws you taught me. Right now, you will be the true leaders of the village, and I am essentially just a figurehead. Please provide them with any security they require, and I would like the elders to work on removing all of the VIPs who attended the Chunin exams from the village and Ibiki. Nara-sama should take charge of the village's security and repair plans, in my opinion. I want Aburame-sama and Inuzaku-sama to collaborate on early detection and defense trap placement throughout the village. I want Yamanka-sama to work with the hospitals and other emergency locations to make sure they have supplies and are operating as efficiently as possible, while Akamichi-sama should check the village's supplies. In the event that Orochimaru plans another attack, we must have as many of our people ready as possible since I killed their Kazekage and hurt their Jinchuriki. Sand will be a while, but Iwa, Cloud, or anybody else could join the sound at any moment to attack us. So, is there anyone who disagrees with my ideas or has better ones? What are you planning to do yourself? Inquired Inoichi. Naruto remarked, well, Iruka will assist me, just as he did for the Hokage, in giving all teams missions inside the village until Kakashi returns. I intended to place all Junin and Chunin under Nara-sama, who would then be in charge of all out-of-village missions. Glancing up from his book, Kakashi questioned, where am I going? In Naruto's words, I need you to go to Wave Country Kakashi. As they all turned to face him, Kakashi remarked, you want me to get Tazuna, don't you? Yes, he is a loud and inebriated drunk, but he is also an incredible contractor, Naruto remarked. Please go and instruct him to inform the residents of Wave that they should send him and any volunteers who wish to assist in repairing the village's walls and damage if they truly wish to reimburse us rather than just the money they owe us. Although we swiftly drove the forces back, they caused extensive damage to the buildings that would take time to fix in 10 days. I believe you could be there and back. You and Jiraiya can both send summonses to let us know if something goes wrong, and I can summon Jiraiya as well if something goes wrong here. Yeah, that reasonable time frame, Kakashi said after giving it some thought. 36 hours to arrive, 4 days to organize and publicize your desires, and then a 4.5-day journey back, which took 6 days by sea but only 2 days off for the bridge. Do I have assistance or am I going it alone? Naruto was saying, Ibiki, can you spare 3 Anbu who would work well with Kakashi for 10 days? Yeah, Ibiki replied. That's all I have for now, Naruto said, nodding. Jiraiya and Kakashi can both depart as soon as they're ready. Does anyone have any better ideas or see any problems with my plans? After everyone had given it some thought, Shuza inquired, what are your plans for the Genin teams? They're currently worthless as is. I understand, said Naruto, but I'm going to divide the Genins into 2 teams in order for Shikamaru and Shino Chunin to be subject to your orders, Nara-sama. I would like to temporarily remove their status. Inoichi responded, you seem like you had this all thought up in advance, Naruto. Not really, Naruto remarked. The old man and Jiraiya gave me the basic idea. I came up with the concepts for Danzo and Kakashi on my own. The old man could have used this time to start a civil war with those who follow him and those who follow the Hokage, but he never could bring himself to do anything about Danzo. That's it, I think, Hamaru said. We all have responsibilities, and I think Naruto has a good plan for the safety of the village. Let's begin. The meeting was adjourned. Following the meeting, the 2 elders proceeded to the hospital where the Sandaime was. They passed through Anbu security and entered the room, where Hamaru remarked, he is doing just as you had instructed, Saratobi. And how was his plan? Asked the third, who was in bed with IVs attached to him. His plan was fantastic, and we would have been duped when he claimed he was only carrying out your plans if we hadn't known the truth, Koharu said. In addition to putting Danzo in his proper place, he has allayed the other council members' fears until you recover. I think everything will be alright. We've set it up so that only Naruto and I can visit you, and the Anbu at the door will knock before allowing him entry so you can act as though you're unconscious. With a nod, the third person asked, so do you see any troubles? No, Hamaru said, not in the near future. Anyway, the clan head's ease with this is not surprising, as the plans he created were utilized during his father's passing. Kakashi and Jiraiya are both going on missions today. I can understand Jiraiya going to get Tsunade, but what's Kakashi's mission? The third said, blinking. Hamaru stated, Kakashi and Naruto seem to know someone by the name of Tazuna. I see, so that's what he's doing, the third said with a smile regarding a mission rank. Tazuna, a contractor. Misletus, they haven't had a chance to obtain the funds for the appropriate rank, but it was still completed. That's not something I would have considered. Well, we must be leaving, Koharu said to address the recent change in affairs. We must meet with the Fire Lord and the other VIPs. The third nods and says, be decisive but keep me informed. I don't want Naruto to be aware of my activities. They both nod and walk away when Naruto saw someone standing on the heads of the cages. He thought, what is she doing here? He was thinking about the recent events, particularly the new fan club he had needed since the invasion, and was going to his village sanctuary to reflect before starting his duties in the Hokage office. He saw the individual take a few steps back from the edge, then run away and jump over it. Naruto became very alarmed and used all of his remaining energy to propel himself forward. Jumping over the side with his wings tucked down to gain speed, he grabbed the person's foot and flapped his wings, causing the person to gasp in shock and stop their fall just 3 feet off the ground below. After setting the person down and landing next to her, Naruto pulled his wings back, took a few deep breaths to calm his own breathing, and then turned to face the girl, who was sobbing with her knees up to her face. Why did you do something stupid like that, Tenten? He asked. Tenten simply cried, and Naruto sensed chakra signatures approaching, so he approached her, placed his hand on her shoulder, and ushered her and himself into the Hokage office. Naruto took a step back, checked to make sure no one else had entered the room, and Tenten asked, in a trembling voice, why? After glancing at her, Naruto questioned, why what? Tenten said, why did you save me? As she gave him a dejected and hateful look, I have nothing left to live for, she said, turning away and sobbing once more. The words, you're wrong, Tenten, you, came out of Naruto's softened eyes. Tenten stared at him with rage and said, don't you dare tell me I am wrong. Not only is the man I love now dead, but now my only family in this world also died. I have no home any longer, no family, I have nothing. Naruto was thinking, she's just like I used to be. Her family must have died during the invasion, and I remember she was Neji fangirl when we were in the academy together. When Tenten noticed that he was staring at her pityingly, she yelled, don't you dare look at me like that, I don't need your pity. Blinking, Naruto declared, I am not giving you pity. After slapping him, Tenten said, bullshit. Naruto saw Kurenai arrive in a swirl of leaves a few moments earlier, and he used the hand seals they learned from Anko to be quiet. Tenten slapped Naruto and said, bullshit. She quickly concealed herself with genjutsu, and Naruto remarked, Tenten, I am not giving you pity because pity never solved anything. Tenten responded, and what do you know of pity or hurt? You know nothing about me for that matter, so why the hell am I even here listening to you, whoever the hell you are? Tenten blinked and asked, what? As Naruto grinned and said, Tenshi and the Oni. I'm the guy in the story you heard about in Kurenai place not too long ago, Naruto said as he sat down. Tenten looked at the man in front of her for the first time, blinked, and became wide-eyed before slowly sitting down and saying, so you have a demon inside of you. Naruto said, I did until recently, but I know the pain of loneliness, I know the feeling of receiving pity. I also know the pain of losing what family you have in the world, so I can understand being scared, tired, alone. But you're not alone, Tenten. You have people who care about you, you still have teammates who care for you, and you still have a village, the love of your life. And Naruto's eyes went wide as a flash of memory of Tenten working behind a counter in a weapon shop the day Naruto first entered the academy, and the third taking him to get his supplies, and he said, your father also died defending. I remember who your family is now, Dustin, your father. Your mother died giving birth to you. I remember you telling me about it when I came to your store with the Sandiami. Your father was so proud of you, Tenten, bragging about how good your skills with weapons were and how you would show everyone woman could be great ninja as well. Do you think him on Neji would want to see you die out of pity for yourself? No, they wouldn't. They would want you to live on and continue protecting the village they died for. Do you want to dishonor their memory by dying? As he stepped forward until he was right in front of her and slowly wiped the tears away from Tenten's face. If you need anything, Tenten, I am here for you, Naruto said, taking a quick look around the room. Kurenai's genjutsu suddenly broke when a pair of arms materialized behind Tenten, and she said, so will I, Tenten? The girl's eyes widened as she turned back to Kurenai. As Naruto and Kurenai held onto the girl, Tenten started crying again and collapsed to her knees, struggling to keep herself from crying. After a few minutes, she eventually dozed off, and Naruto lifted her up, saying, Kurenai, could you please push chakra into the seal behind the Sandiami picture and move it to the side? Kurenai stood up and followed Naruto's instructions, but she was startled when a door on the side of the room opened, and Naruto carried Tenten into a side room that had a bed and a bathroom. Naruto then placed Tenten on the bed. Naruto, how did you find out about this room? Kurenai asked, raising an eyebrow. Naruto nodded and continued, I spent more time in the Hokage office than anyone outside of the Hokage himself. Hell, I am betting odds I was conceived in that room. Or this one anyways. The old man would put me here when I could not stay at my apartment or at the hospital. We will let her sleep here while we have our meetings in a little bit, but I need to find someplace for her to go. She said she had no family, no home, No love, so I think her dad and Thea family business as well as her home was destroyed in the attack. If that's true, I need to ask Sakura where she is staying at, since she said she was staying with Tenten before, while leading her out of the door closed and vanished. Fearing the response, Kurenai scowled and asked, "Why was she here with you?" Naruto said, "I went to the Hokage monument to think and prepare for what is to come, and I saw her jump over the side another second later and she would be dead right now at the bottom of the mountain. When I saved her, I sensed several people heading that way and did not want to put her on the spot right after trying to kill herself, so I shushined us here. A few moments later you arrived," as he sat down in the Hokage's chair. There was a knock on the door before Kurenai could respond, so Naruto said, "Come in." The door opened, and Guy, Lee, Asuma, Choji, Shikamaru, Shino, Kiba, and Sakura entered. According to Asuma, "Who are you?" Naruto replied, "I take it the old man has kept you out of the loop on recent events." Asuma, "I am the Tenshi Sannin Naruto Namikaze." "So you're the guy he was talking about. I was wondering what you looked like now," Asuma said with a smile. With a seductive voice, Ino said, "Hello sexy, where have you been all my life?" Sakura said, "Ino, it's Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." Ino and the others who were unaware of it both went wide-eyed as Naruto began to perspire as the temperature dropped by a few degrees. For some reason, only Ino failed to notice that Kurenai was about to say something that was still emitting ki. Asuma inquired, "What's up with you Kurenai? Why are you releasing ki at Ino?" Naruto drew everyone's attention back to himself by saying, "Enough." Naruto said, "Good, now I am sure all of you are wondering what is going on and how the dead last became a Sannin and all that shit. The exact details are classified by order of the Sandaime Hokage, and currently the village is under martial law. We may have won the invasion, but we are currently at war. As Sannin, I am currently the highest ranking ninja in the village, answering directly to the Sandaime, and it is real with the backing of not only the Hokage but the clan heads and the elders. The Sandaime was injured during the invasion, but he is expecting to make a recovery soon, but until then you are all going to follow my orders. For now I need you all to refer me to as Namikaze, which is my actual last name. My father was the Yondaime Hokage, and I know all the jutsu that made my father feared as well as others. I hate leaving you in the dark, but until we can secure the village things this way now. As for why you are all here, Shikamaru, Shino, as you already know, you have both been given rank of Chunin before the invasion, and you were to report to your Shikaku in the mission hall after this meeting is over. Now because of recent events the Genin teams will have to be reformed, drawing everyone's attention. Sorry to interrupt Namikaze-sama, but it appears that we are missing my young student Tenten, Guy said, surveying the room. Naruto stated, "I am aware of that, and she is currently recovering from mental fatigue over the loss of not only her teammate but her father as well. I have allowed her a little time to recover, and I will notify her of the arrangements later." "Thank you sir. Where is my eternal rival?" Guy said, nodding. Naruto stated, "Kakashi is currently on a mission out of village and Team 7 is officially disbanded." Asuma, "I am temporarily disbanding Team 10 also." Asuma replied, "May I inquire why my team is being disbanded?" Naruto responded, "Of course, I was just about to get to that. Your team was originally created for information gathering abilities, which they are well suited for, but with the current situation they would be pushed back into the reserves and most likely would only receive nothing but D-rank missions. I want to reassign you team to allow Choji and Ino both to work on improving other skills outside of Their clan jutsu. Choji, Ino, you are both going to work endurance, stamina, and speed under Guy along with Kiba." "Sir, I must protest, I do not believe Lee would," Guy said, but Naruto's hand signaled him to stop. Naruto said, "I am already aware of what you are referring to Guy, and I agree that Lee would only improve under you. However, there are 3 reasons I think it would be better for Lee to train for the time being with Sakura and Tenten. The reason is Lee is a stamina freak and powerhouse. Kiba is one as well, but I believe that with Lee on the team Tenten will be used to Lee's speed, already forcing Sakura to increase hers. Sakura and Tenten can work with Lee on his stealth under either Asuma or Kurenai, giving him more of an advantage on the battlefield, because with his speed if he was queer the enemies would only see a blur if they were lucky and think it was a genjutsu hiding him, since he was quite making them use Their chakra to dispel a genjutsu that's not there. The final thing is with the current lose of her family and teammate Tenten is going to need someone she can trust. Sakura and Tenten have recently been supporting each other after the Hyuga incident, and with Lee as a familiar face for Tenten she will be more comfortable and can recover faster. These are most likely temporary changes, but each of you have skills needing to be worked on, so this would be a good time to do it in case we are forced into a long war instead of a single invasion and you are sent on missions that could cost you your lives. Does that answer satisfy you? Doubts Guy. Guy responded, I withdraw my request. Lee's flames of youth are needed for his teammates at a time like these, and I agree with your reasoning. Now as to who the sensei of the other team is, said Naruto, nodding. While everyone was staring at Naruto, he turned to face Kurenai and startled them by saying, Kurenai, there has been a request of an S-rank mission with a possibly indefinite time limit. Asuma replied, Naruto, what does this have to do with the sensei of the other genin team? Read that but don't commit on it or allow anyone else to read it, Naruto said, grabbing a scroll from his vest pocket and tossing it to Asuma. With wide eyes, Asuma opened the scroll and smirked before stating, I see you do know that could and probably will backfire, right? With the scroll in his vest again, Naruto remarked, perhaps, but I have to at least offer the mission to Kurenai. It will be her choice to accept it or not. Will you get on with it? Kurenai snarled as they discussed her as though she hadn't been there. Naruto replied, right. Well, as I said, the mission is S-rank and could last for the rest of your life, however, that long as I personally have my reservation of even mentioning this mission, but the person who requested it was very eccentric in requesting it. That is why I have yet to decide who will be the sensei of the other team. If you accept the mission, then the choice will already be made. Kurenai replied, well, tell me what it is so I can tell you my answer. Nodding, Naruto continues, well, the current leader of a village has recently been attacked by a swarm of thieves and bandits who wish to take things from him, including body fluids, since he has a bloodline. He is requesting you by name for the job of bodyguard, protection of his children, helping advise him in times and dealing with any possible threats to his life. The mission length will be determined by you after you accept the mission. There may even come a time where the lessons taught in courtisan classes will be required for this mission. Also, the fact that the council of his village may push for him to have a second wife, and you will have to not only help him decide who should be his second wife but get along with that person. After a brief period of silence, Kurenai questioned, what kind of threat will these bandits be? Naruto replied, well, to the actual client they want kill him, but you on the other hand will most likely have several attempts on your life as well as threats. What about his first wife, will she also be requiring protection? Kurenai asked, her eyes darkening. That's where you will mostly come in, Kurenai. There is no current wife unless you agree, Naruto said, placing his hands in front of his face. Shikamaru and Shino exchanged glances as the implication hit everyone, and Sakura looked at Kurenai, who responded, I refuse. Sakura, Shino, Shikamaru, and Kurenai were shocked when Naruto sighed and said, well, that was too bad. It could have been good for not only the future considering the bloodline as well as the good of the village, but also for yourself, but I understand I had to ask anyways. I was actually hoping you would accept this mission. With an expression of surprise, Kurenai remarked, you would actually be happy if I accepted this mission. Yes, said Naruto, for the benefit of the village. Kurenai growled as he said, you son of a bitch here, I thought you were different the other guys, how could you hurt my feelings like that? As though nothing had happened, Naruto said, well, sorry to hurt your feelings. I did not think asking you to marry me would cause this kind of feelings. Kurenai's eyes widened as her mind processed what Naruto had just said, shocking everyone but Asuma. She gritted her teeth and said, marry you, I would not marry. Naruto replied, yeah, did you actually think I would want to get rid of you after everything we've been through together? As Kurenai's mind struggled to come up with something to say, she appeared completely lost. Well, I guess I will have to move on if you feel that deeply, Hokage, Naruto said as he got up and walked around the desk. However, he was stopped when Kurenai pressed her lips to his. As her mind finally caught up, he put his arms around her and held her close as they kissed, and after Asuma coughed, he asked, so, is that a yes? Kurenai glanced at Naruto, who asked, wait, what is the bandit and thieves you mentioned? As she reviewed everything in her mind. Naruto was sitting at his desk when he said, well, you see, as Ino demonstrated earlier, I have had a sudden fan club started in this village. In fact, if it was not for my ninja skills, I would probably be tied to a bed right now and being ravaged by several women. Sakura laughed and replied, well, what bloodline were you referring to? I mean, I know you carry the Uzumaki bloodline, but it does not really do you any good, Naruto, as a male. So is that the one you were talking about, or are you referring to your healing? Everyone turned to stare at Naruto when he said, neither actually. Ino responded, wait, forehead. How do you know about Naruto bloodline so well? Sakura turned to face Naruto, who shrugged and pulled the woman into an embrace, saying, it's your call. My lips are sealed, hopefully with Kurheim's lips. When Sakura noticed that everyone was staring at her, she said, I'm his cousin. This caused everyone to gasp. Ino replied, no way, Naruto basically stalked you all through the academy. Is he sick or perverted or something? Sakura replied, no, it's why Naruto can't tell any of you why his looks have changed. You will have to wait until he can tell you before I can tell, but it was actually for my own protection, that's all I can say. After glancing at her and Naruto for a moment, Ino sighed and growled. Shino inquired, if it is not the bloodline that we were informed about, then what is it, Naruto-sama? Naruto replied, I will tell you all later. I found out I have 2 living relatives besides Sakura and I want to talk to them about it before I reveal it. If they don't accept me as their relative, then I will keep my bloodline a secret so that in the future I won't have to worry about being associated to them. Wait, if you're related to Sakura, you're also related to her mother, Ino said, glancing at Sakura. The 3 of them stiffened for a moment, that everyone noticed, and responded, currently we don't claim each other. She knew who I was all these years, and even when she had the chance to adopt me as a child, she not only refused but said some other things I overheard that destroyed nearly all chances of ever being called a family, so I refuse to call her family until she proves otherwise. Anyways, Asuma, I got 2 things I want from you to do when you are not on missions. I would like for you to assist both Guy and Kurenai with the teams. Asuma smiles and says, you take care of her kid, or I will see if your healing ability can really heal your entire body. After she punched him in the ribs with her elbow, Naruto remarked, of course I do, Yubaka, adding, well, I'm still waiting for her answer. She never actually said any. With a smile, Naruto reached into his pocket and said, well then, this is yours. She and the other girl's eyes widened as he produced a tiny ring that contained jade. Kurenai whispered, it's lovely. Kurenai's eyes softened as Naruto smiled and said, it was my mother's. He then put it on and asked, are you sure? I mean, you only have a few things they gave you. And everyone snickered and face flagged when Naruto said, it was her request that when I found a woman who I loved with all my heart that I give it to her as her sign of approval. I'm sure besides, it clashes with my eyes. With a groan from his new genins, Naruto got up and said, well guys, I hate to bust up these happy moments, but I have things to take care of. Guy, I want you to take your team and evaluate them and begin training. Tomorrow you will begin D-rank missions from me. All eyes turned to Naruto as he went on, Asuma, Shikamaru, Shino. Now that's funny. What? Asuma inquired. Naruto replied, say the first letter off your names going from oldest to youngest. You 3. A, was Asuma's response. S, was said by Shino. According to Shikamaru, troublesome S. Naruto laughed and replied, well Team S, you also dismissed to go and get any missions from Shikaku Team Kurenai. Please stay while I give your orders. Everyone left the room except for Lee, Kurenai, Sakura, and Naruto, who waited until the door had closed before getting up, approaching the Shodem's photo, activating the seal behind it once more, and saying, follow me. When the door opened and everyone entered, they discovered Tenten still asleep. Sakura, where are you currently staying? Asked Naruto. As Sakura put it, with Ino. Why? Naruto looked at him and said, Tenten has no place to go. I also don't want her being alone right now, so I need to have someone keep a watch on me, and you can stop pretending to be asleep. Tenten, I know you saw and heard everything in that crystal ball. Tenten inquired, how did you know? As the cage bunchen rose in smoke, the chair next to the bed exploded in smoke, revealing a clone of Naruto who exclaimed, I was watching you. I got so good with this jutsu. If I only use one, we can communicate with just thought. Lee inquired, why were you watching Tenten sleep? It is most unyouthful. Well, you see, Lee, I was worried about her and wanted to make sure she was okay. Now, how are you feeling? Naruto said after Sakura punched him in the head. Tenten said, looking down, better. Naruto laughed and replied, well, that's good. Now Team Kurenai, as I told Guy's team, you are to begin missions tomorrow, but go ahead and run the paces to let Kurenai judge your skills. In the meantime, I will find a place for Tenten to stay. Naruto, what if she stayed in our place? Kurenai asked. Well, Naruto said, blinking, I don't know. I mean, how do you think it would work? Kurenai replied, well, in case you have not noticed, your room has actually 2 twins that were made into a full bed. We can move your things into my room and let her have your room. Would I be able to do that also? Sakura asked. Kurenai replied, I don't see why not, but I thought you were staying at Ino. Why not at your house either? Sakura replied, well, my mom's place was caught in one of the jutsu attacks and one whole wall is missing right now in Ino, and I can only stand being on each other's nerves for so long before we attack each other, so I want to get out of there before that happens again. After glancing at Naruto, Kurenai remarked, I don't mind, but we need to ask Anko to make sure. All but Kurenai went pale and uttered the words, Anko. Naruto replied, yeah, she's the other person who lives there in the other bedroom. According to Kurenai, she will agree as long as no one goes in her room. Naruto replied, well, you heard it. If you want, you all can go ahead and move the things together as a team bonding exercise, but I can't make it a mission or pay you currently. I also don't know when I will be home tonight since I have a lot of work to do here. Kurenai said, well, who is up for some free labor? after glancing at her team. This will give me a chance to test my flames of, Lee said, but Sakura silenced him with another blow to the head. Everyone snickered when Naruto said, see, Sakura is already helping Lee in his stealth training. Lee turned pale and rubbed the back of his head when Naruto grinned and said, well Sakura, I am counting on you to help him with that training all the time. Sakura put her arms around Lee and said, sure, want me to help you with that training Lee-kun? An evil gleam appeared in her head. Naruto said, Sakura, you're not going to hurt him are you? As everyone started to perspire. Sakura kissed his cheek and said, nope, just decided to rebel against myself and Lee's going to help me, right Lee-kun? Naruto took a breath and replied, right, just remember you got a roommate Sakura so we don't want to hear any moans and groans from your room. When Sakura turned a bright red, Tenten remarked, same to you, Tenshi-sama. It was now Naruto's and Kurenai's turn to blush. Naruto replied, right well you're all dismissed I got a lot of hard work to do. As they were leaving the room, everyone except Lee snickered and Sakura said, remember that can cause blindness Naruto. Damn, Naruto sighed, I think I liked inner Sakura better. When Kakashi returned from the Land of Waves with Tazuna and about 75 others, it had been 8 days since he had left. Tazuna was led by Kakashi to the Hokage office upon their arrival. We're back, Naruto. We have about 50 workers and their families here right now to help. Tazuna here wants to know where they're to stay and where to start. Kakashi raised an eyebrow when they arrived and saw Naruto working on paperwork behind the desk. Naruto glanced up and replied, I had my clones go and clean up the Uchiha district as best as I could and they can stay there. As for where to start, he took out a map of Konoha with buildings on it and stated, I want them to start at the residential district on the south side of the village. Not too much damage was done there but enough to cause troubles. I have mostly been getting people places to sleep for now. That's safe. I want Tazuna himself to get a hold of Ani Gutsu, the chief architect of the village, and do a run through of all the damage building and work with him to get everything repaired. Looks like you really are the Hokage kid, Tazuna remarked. Naruto replied, acting Hokage for now. The council has been giving me more power and duties every day since I seem to be doing a good job anyways. Kakashi, if you can get them situated and then return here, I have another mission for you. According to Kakashi, I just returned, Naruto replied, relax, it's just something I found when I was cleaning the Uchiha district. If what I found is true, I think I might have found a bargaining chip with Itachi Uchiha. As he led Tazuna away, Kakashi scowled and remarked, right, I will return as soon as possible. Team Kurenai and Team Guy were present when Kakashi returned, and Sakura greeted him as, hello Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi said, hello Sakura, how are you doing, after glancing at her. Sakura replied, all right, Naruto said, right, now that Kakashi has returned I won't have to keep sending all of you to the south side of the residential district since Tazuna and the other volunteers are here. In case any of you have to get a hold of them, they're staying in the Uchiha district. Now I want to say I am very pleased with your work in that area as well as your training. Sensei, I want an evaluation by the end of the week on who if any of your students who could be a medic nin. I have received a summon from Jiraiya and he has found Tsunade and they are returning with a few disagreements. What? I don't know, but I am going to try and ask her assistant to start teaching some of you in the medical field when they return. If she refuses, I will get a doctor at the hospital to start teaching you since most of the patients are out of critical condition now. Now as for what you are to do today, I want you all to have work on improving your actual combat skills as a team. We've been lucky no counterattack has come, but it could happen anytime, so be prepared sensei. Also, if you know how to seal stuff in scroll, teach each of your student how to seal first aid kits, non-perishable food, water canteens, weapons, and cloths because you might have to move out for combat or missions with little to no warning. That is all for today. Dismissed. After they had all departed, Kakashi waited until Naruto sighed, sank into his chair, placed his hands across his chest, and said, so, any problems on the mission? Kakashi replied, just a few questions from the Anbu on the way to Wave about who you were. I told them you were the new Sannin and our current leader. They asked if I trust you and I said yes, so they forgot any doubts they had. How's the Sandaime? Naruto replied, still no change. I go by and see him every day but he's still asleep. Well, I wasted enough of your time and I know you must be tired, so I will get to the point. I found a document talking about something called the Ma. Naruto was interrupted by Kakashi, who said, yes, I am fully aware of that level of the Sharingan. What of it? Do you have that level of eye? Inquired Naruto. With a scowl, Kakashi remarked, I have a version of it but not the true form. Why? Is that eye going blind? Inquired Naruto. Yes, Kakashi replied, why? Naruto clarified. What I am about to discuss with you is in total confidence and can only be talked about with the elders, myself, Jiraiya, or the Hokage should he recover. Understand? Kakashi smiles. As much as I hate it, the Sharingan is too good of a tool to see die out with only one natural user left in the world. It could be lost forever, and after going over some documents the Hokage gave me telling me the truth about the Uchiha massacre, stating that it was ordered by the Sandaime Hokage with the help of Danzo and with permission of the elders. Alarming Kakashi. Kakashi responded, "Wait, you mean Itachi killed them all under orders? Why?" Naruto stated, "Apparently the Uchiha clan was planning to eliminate the entire council as well as the Hokage and seize control of the village. Itachi was a spy reporting all of their plans to the Hokage. The rest is history anyways. As I told during my training, even if it was not ordered with Sasuke dead, we can't actually charge Itachi with the deaths of the Uchiha clan. I was going to run an idea by the elders I had." While waiting to find out what Naruto had planned, Kakashi questioned, "What idea?" "I would have Jiraiya find Itachi and make him a proposal," Naruto stated. "In exchange for him providing us with enough sperm to bear at least 10 children, our hunter nins would cease pursuing him, but he would not be permitted to return to the village." After giving it some consideration, Kakashi remarked, "That does seem reasonable, but why would Itachi agree?" Naruto replied, "Well, beside the fact his family would live on, I would think the idea of having Tsunade take a look at his eye to see if she can fix it would be a good incentive." Kakashi responded, "Alright, I think it's an idea that might work, but I don't think you should do it without discussing it without the elders and Jiraiya agreement." "I know, and it's just a concept for later," Naruto remarked. "I'm too busy trying to keep the village running right now, but maybe there will be something to strive for once things settle down. In any case, I have paperwork to complete. I still have to do some of it myself, but my cage bun Shin do the majority of it in the adjacent rooms. Spend the remainder of today off. And tomorrow you should report to Ibiki. We caught a girl with a curse seal who is a member of the Sound and swears a lot. Ibiki doesn't want to question her until it's closed, and I'm not sure how to do that yet. You are the only person in the village who is currently available to do it because Anko is also unaware." "Alright, I'll take care of it tomorrow," Kakashi said. Nodding, Naruto said, "Good luck," and walked away. Sighing, Naruto contemplated what to do now. He reached beneath the desk and took out a copy of Icha Paradise, thinking, "I now see why they enjoy reading this. It gives me fantastic ideas for Kure-chan and Ai's wedding night." The following day, while Naruto was going through the papers that the elders had just given him, the door to his office opened and a Chunin ran in, panting, saying, "I apologize for disturbing you, sir, but I just received a report from a patrol who arrived seriously injured. Looks like we have a ton of enemies coming this way," he said, clutching his knees and breathing heavily. "Which way are they coming from?" scowled Naruto. "According to the Chunin, the west, sir. Go tell the elders about this and tell them I'm going to do a flyby and see what we got coming," Naruto said, nodding. "I should be back in a few hours," he said as he leapt out the window, spread his wings, and took off westward over the village. An hour or so later, Naruto paused in midair and exclaimed, "My god! Kumo, Iwa, sound, sand, wait, what's that?" he said as he began to fly northward. After 3 hours, Naruto ran back to Konoha and headed for the council chambers. Everyone was on edge as he rushed through the doors, panting and sliding to a halt before Inoichi questioned, "So, what did you find?" "Call a town meeting and have all civilians and ninja meet in front of the Hokage Tower in 2 hours, Naruto said. Gasping for air, he collapsed to his knees, panting, and said, "I want all patrols cancelled and back here ASAP." "Not until," said one of the elders. Naruto called out, "Listen, you want to know what's coming? We got around 1000 IWANINS, 400 Cloud NINS, 600 Sound NINS, AROUN 100 Suna NINS, and a full-fledged fucking demon COMPLETEY free since the boy he was in I killed DURRING the first attack on the village. Now don't give me some half-ass debate and do as I say. We have to get ready and fast or everyone is going to die." As he turned and ran toward the Hokage Tower. As they departed, the elders said, "You heard him, he's Hokage now, so follow his orders," while the rest of the group went pale. While hundreds of his clones ran around the village performing various tasks, Naruto was busy creating explosive tags. Naruto looked at the elders and the wheelchair-bound Sandaime as the door to the Hokage office opened, and he said, "Hey old man, how's it going?" while he was still working on tags. "What are you doing, Naruto?" asked the third. "If I can, I'll save everyone's ass," Naruto said. "Do you have the ability to travel?" 3 responded, "Yes." "Why, still working on the tags?" Naruto nods and says, "Good, I need you to take charge of the refugees." With a frown, the third person questioned, "What refugees?" Konoha can't repel the ninjas that are coming, Naruto said, pausing to take a deep breath and close his eyes. We have 3 days before the demon or they arrive. They would have arrived even earlier if I hadn't blown up a couple canyon passes and a dam. I just gave us a little time. The survival of Konoha depends on the survival of its citizens. After that, the village itself can be rebuilt. According to the elders. What do you mean? I mean, I intend to be the only one here when the army and the demon arrive. Naruto remarked. Jiraiya and Tsunade have already received my message asking them to meet the refugees at your temperate home. Wait, Naruto, you want us to leave our village? Said the third. What's more important, old Mana? The people who live here are a few buildings that can be replaced. Asked Naruto. The buildings that are currently here will turn into a cemetery, but the will of fire will continue and Konoha will once again become a powerful tree. I've already made plans for our people's survival since it won't be here when you get back. Please start getting ready now and seal anything you think you'll need to take. Where are we to take our people, Hokage-sama? The elders inquired. After waiting for a short while, the third person said, I think they were speaking to you, Godem. After a brief moment of inaction, Naruto looked up and noticed that both elders had nodded. He grinned slightly, got to his feet, and approached the desk, saying, all right, here is what I have planned. I've divided the villagers into 3 groups, and tomorrow morning, all of the genin and junins will depart, along with the women, children, and elderly. Half of the chunins and every man in the village will make up the second group. They are scheduled to depart tomorrow at noon after assisting me in setting up all the traps I desire. All of Anbu and the remaining chunin will depart the following day to follow. All of you should go to the land of waves. Please, I want everyone to set up explosives on the bridge. Once they get there, they will divert to a shipping town 10 miles south of the bridge, head for the wave, and assist in securing our people if the island is attacked before the second group gets there. Regarding our ANBU's final group and the chunins should go to Suna, please. After blinking, the third one inquired, why Suna? With a sigh, Naruto remarked, I think the approaching Suna ninjas are the last remaining ninjas from their village. They ought to be essentially helpless. I want the village to be taken by the chunins. After glancing at one another, one of the elders questioned, why do you want that? Because after what I have planned, it will take time to restore Konoha. Naruto stated. Wave country could not sustain our people for more than a month at most. Even if they gave us everything they had, I reason that we will have at least a moderate base from which to operate if the chunins I am sending to Suna are able to take the village. That seems like a very good plan, the third person said, nodding. The Anbu, what about it? Well, they got the hard job. Naruto remarked. I want them to leave Konoha and wait for about a day. I want them to return to Konoha at the end of the battle and exterminate everyone here, if any are left alive. You're not planning on living through this, are you? The third said with a frown. With a sigh, Naruto stated, no, I am not, even though I have less than 20% chance of surviving. At least my loved ones will. With a tear streaming down his cheek, the third said, your father would be proud. Thanks, old man, Naruto said with a smile as he stood up and headed for the balcony. The third person said, wait. Well, it looks like it's time to tell our people. Incredulous, Naruto was told by the elders, here, this is for you. With wide eyes, Naruto opened the scroll and revealed what was inside. They said, we had it made for you. The kanji for, God I'm Hokage, is the same as your father's, but let's tell our people about it first so they can assist you. The elders push the third out to the balcony after Naruto nods. The third person in the crowd said, people of Konoha, as you know, I was recently injured during battle and it showed me that my time as Hokage has come to an end as I am not strong enough to lead you. That is why the elders and I have elected a new Hokage. Please welcome the Godem Hokage Naruto Namikaze, the Tenshi Sannin. You have no idea how long I have waited for this day and it makes me happy to see all of your faces. It is why the next thing I must do is so hard, Naruto said. We have recently learned that in 3 days' time the combined forces of Iwa, Kumo, Sound, and Sand will be attacking our village. The crowd cheered as he left. This caused everyone to gasp and widen their eyes. That is not all. About the same time as that is happening, we will also be attacked by the one-tailed sand demon Shukaku, Naruto said, holding up his hand to stop everyone. Everyone was so terrified that they almost died there. Now, as I was saying, I have come up with a plan to ensure Konoha will survive, but first I must ask you, what is Konoha? Naruto said, startling everyone around him with his chakra flare. Naruto waved his hand and asked, is it these buildings, or the mountain there, or is it the gates around our village? The answer is no. Konoha is an idea that we each share in our hearts. It is an idea that when you have something precious you would do anything to protect it. It is the ones who came before us and the ones who are at our feet looking at us as adults or parents for advice. It is the will of fire that is truly what Konoha is. That is why when our enemies come here in 3 days they will capture our buildings and mountain for a few minutes because our people will not be here. After those few moments this village will claim their lives and the building will be their tombstones. Now I want you all to go home and get ready. I want all ninja who know how to seal to go to everyone's home and seal as much as you can in each scroll, cloths, food, weapons, and the most important items. Tomorrow at dawn all women, elderly, and children will be escorted out of the village by all Junin and Genin. At noon the rest of the adults in Konoha will leave with half of our Chunin force. I want half of the Chunins. Volunteers only to meet me after they leave along with Anbu tomorrow for their orders. Now that is all for now. I want you to all go home and have a family dinner with the ones you love the most because it may be a long time before you will have the chance to again. That is all dismissed. The crowd started to disperse as Naruto entered. Everybody has their own opinions. That means you too, Naruto, the third said, glancing at Naruto. For the remainder of the evening, I can manage things here. With a sorrowful grin, Naruto said, thanks, old man, and turned to go. With the exception of Kurenai, who was sitting on a couch and appeared anxious, Naruto's house, which he shared with Kurenai, Sakura, Tenten, and Anko, was largely deserted when he arrived. He grinned and said, hey Tenchi, where is everyone? Anko went to spend some time with Iruka, Sakura went to see her mother, and Tenten went to see Lee and Guy as well as visiting her father's grave, Kurenai said, glancing at her fiancé copyright. After noticing that Kurenai's makeup was ruined and that she had been crying, Naruto nods and asks, so how are you doing? Kurenai expressed concern. She took his hand and gave it a firm squeeze, saying, I am afraid I am going to lose it because I have finally found happiness. Naruto laughed and replied, nah, everything's going to be alright. We got a plan that is going to take out most of the enemy forces as well as the demon, and then after they are dead we will rebuild. There won't be any casualties on our side. How can you be sure? Kurenai asked, glancing at him. Naruto replied, because there won't be anyone here to have casualties. I know a lot of people are upset about losing their homes and a few important things, but they can be replaced. Lives can't, so that's why we are doing what we are doing. Kurenai, feeling a little better, asked, which is what? Naruto replied, well, I have one volunteer who is going to wait until the last moment when the enemy arrives, so that way when they come into the village he or she will then set off the trap and leave the area. 5 minutes later, boom, the entire village and everyone in 1 mile of it will be dead. After a few minutes of staring at Naruto, Kurenai remarked, so you really think it will be that simple? Naruto replied, yes, it's that simple. The enemy has come not to take over the leaf but to destroy it. Well, we are going to destroy it alright, just not like they wanted. Well, I hope you're right, Kurenai said, resting her head on his shoulder. I am, Naruto remarked, don't worry about it. Kurenai inquired, so who's the volunteer? According to Naruto, I don't know. Kurenai stood there, looking shocked, and said, what? Naruto replied, I don't know. The Sandaime and Ibiki said it was someone who was a master of stealth and speed who also is an expert at demolition. All I got is a codename for him to use when referring to him, and even that is a fake, so no one knows of his or her existence. Apparently this person is S-rank security level. Well, I suppose that's true. Even in this situation they would want to keep the secret, but I thought it would be you, Kurenai said after giving it some thought. Naruto chuckled and replied, no, I am coming with the Anbu afterwards to where we are going, so I won't be with you and the others when you leave, since I am the only one in the village who can summon Gambunta at the moment. I have to be with them. Kurenai asked, what does Gambunta have to do with the plan? With a bewildered but at least somewhat less anxious expression. Naruto stated, Gambunta can make oil burns. It's one of the things that are required for the plan to work. Sighing, Kurenai replied, well, I don't really understand what the plan is, but I feel better now that you are not the one staying behind. When she rested her head on his shoulder, Naruto turned away and replied, yeah. Kurenai replied, so, what about us? I mean, we haven't really had a chance to talk about our wedding yet and I want to know what you think. Naruto appeared to be contemplating something and replied, I know, I am excited about it also, but can we wait until we're safe at our destination to talk about it? I don't want to be thinking about it over the next day or so and accidentally blow myself up with an exploding tag from not paying attention, and I know with the way my mind wonders that it could happen. Although this made Kurenai sad, he said, I suppose, you do have trouble with multitasking when not using Kage Bunshins. Naruto said, mockingly, you cut to deep, my love. As soon as the house door opened, Sakura and her Rukia entered, and Naruto scowled briefly before asking, so, what are you both doing here? Sakura replied, well, I came to start packing and she wanted to talk to you. She said she completed the task you set for her. Blinking, Naruto uttered, really, and what did you find out? Kill me, what I learned hurts more than death. What I had no idea about anything, and my pain was nothing compared to what you went through, and the way you helped others is something I could never do because I am not strong enough. Rukia reached into her dress, took out a kunai, and placed it on the table as everyone was tense. I am a reminder of your pain, and all I want is to let you have peace from that pain as my way of saying sorry, so please just kill me, she said. As everyone waited to see what would happen, Naruto stood up, grabbed the kunai, and walked toward her. She closed her eyes, and Naruto smiled. Then they saw blood. Rukia shed a tear as she felt pain, and when she opened her eyes, she saw that the area where she had felt pain was covered in green chakra. Naruto said, "This scar is the scar of our past. As long as you have it, you will remember the pain we both felt from our past, but as this scar is healed over, so is our relationship. I forgive you, Aunt." He dropped the kunai, letting it fall to the ground, and then walked back over and sat down next to Kurenai. Astonished, Rukia questioned, Why forgive me?" Naruto stated, "To err is human, to forgive is divine. By forgiving you I feel I am better than you were, and now that you have asked for my forgiveness I feel it's divine justice, so I don't have a reason to kill one of the only family I have in this world. After all, that's all I ever really wanted." Sakura walked over and gave her a hug, grinning slightly and saying, "I guess I forgive you also, Mom." Kurenai grinned and said, "I am truly fortunate to have such a wonderful man in my life." "Come on, Mom, let's go pack my stuff," Sakura said, releasing her mother. Sakura asked, "Do either of you need any help?" as Rukia nodded. "No, I got everything already," Naruto remarked. After glaring at him, Kurenai took out a scroll and remarked, "Everything else can be replaced later." Nodding, Kurenai remarked, "I still got a little to do." Naruto replied, "Then let's get started. All three of you will be leaving at sunrise tomorrow." Sakura paused and inquired, "How are you?" Naruto nodded his head and said, "I got to make sure everyone else is gone, and I am heading out with the Anbu to protect the others and make sure that no one comes after you all." With a nod, Sakura inquired, "So where are we going?" "Say hi to Inari," Naruto said with a smile with wide eyes. Sakura exclaimed, "Wave country, why there?" Naruto replied, "Simple, if the enemy comes after you then you can blow the bridge and stop them, it's the perfect defense." "But if the enemy comes after us, won't it mean they got by you?" Sakura scowled. Naruto stated, "It's war, Sakura, not everything goes according to plan, and I have to make sure in case the plan fails." After Sakura nods, Kurenai inquired, "You are telling us the truth, right? You are coming with the Anbu?" Naruto replied, "Yes, as soon as we make sure that the enemy's not coming after you we will be there." Kurenai nodded and began packing, saying, "All right, I believe you." Naruto was thinking, "I promised that I would do whatever it takes to protect you, Kurenai, and I don't break my promises. I am following you, even in spirit to wave, because my heart belongs to you. I will ensure the enemy does not come after you, so I am not lying. We just have different ideas about the truth." After helping Sakura, Rukia, and Kurenai pack during the night, Naruto lay down on the bed to sleep while Kurenai crawled into bed next to him. She gave him a gentle smile and began kissing him slowly. "Not yet, Tenchi, I want to wait to do that until we are safe. Wouldn't you rather wait and share it with your true love in safety and not on the eve of war?" Naruto shed a tear as he pulled her into an embrace, stopping her. He was in heaven when he felt her kiss as she trailed her kisses down his neck. "All right, I do need all my energy for the long trip tomorrow anyways, it's just that." Kurenai scowled for a moment. Naruto put his head on her head and remarked, "I know, but you will thank me later." "I am sorry I am lying to you, but I know you would try to stay if I told you the truth," Naruto said as he lay there that night while she slept. The following morning, almost the whole village was at the gate, and Naruto was pacing among the people, calming their fears with his words. When he finally reached the wagon containing the third, he remarked, "So I guess this is it, old man. Have you told anyone what your real plan is?" asked the third, nodding. "No, and that's the way I want it. I don't want Kurenai to hate for lying to her while I live," Naruto said, shaking his head. The third said, "Just come back to her. Promise me you will do everything you can to come back to her, and I will keep my mouth shut." He shook his head. And with a sigh, Naruto said, "All right, I promise." With a nod, the third said, "All right, Guy." After Guy ran over, the third person said, "Tell everyone to move out." "All right, you young people, the Sunday says to move out. Let's show everyone the flames of youth by being there by noon," Guy yells as he nods and leaps on the wall. When everyone began to leave, Naruto felt arms encircle him. He turned to see Kurenai, who embraced and kissed him before releasing him after a few moments and saying, "Be careful, I love you." Naruto declared, "I will, and I love you also." Sakura stood by her teammates and remarked, "Hey, that reminds me, I got a surprise for both of you." As Kurenai put it, what Sakura said, the third gave me that when he told me about you cousin I think you should know the truth, as she produced a scroll and threw it to Naruto. After opening the scroll, Naruto read it with wide eyes and handed it to Kurenai, who exclaimed, "We are." According to Naruto, already married, the third occurred at the head of the march when two yells that read, "I'm going to kill you for marrying us without our knowledge, you old bastard," reverberated throughout the crowd. The third grinned crow-facedly and laughed, saying, "I guess Sakura told them about the marriage, oh well." As the day wore on, the second group departed, and Naruto had the Chunins and Anbu assist with preparations before their departure. "Why have you summoned me, Aegean kid?" asked Gambunta, who Naruto had summoned after they had left. Naruto stated, "Konoha is about to fall. I want you to help me set this place up as a graveyard for our enemies. I want every toad but you to fill every building with oil on every wall. As for you boss, I want you to fill that river there with oil. I dammed the river up and made it circle the village." Gambunta inquired, "Will they not notice it?" Naruto replied, "No, I am going to use my bloodline to hide it." Gambunta inquired, "What bloodline?" Trees began to grow as Naruto leapt to the ground and placed his hands on the ground. After a brief moment of widening, Gambunta exclaimed, "I see, is that all?" Naruto replied, "For today, tomorrow before the enemy comes I have one more task for you." With a nod, Gambunta asked, "So when do I get to fight them?" "You don't, they will fight an army of none," Naruto remarked. With a blink, Gambunta questioned, "What?" Naruto replied, "Don't worry about it, when the time comes everyone will know what happened here. For now I just need you and the others to use your oil. Is there anyways I can just use a bunch of chakra to call all the toads at once to help? Just channel chakra into me. I will call them all and get them started," Gambunta said, nodding. As he starts channeling chakra, Naruto nods and says, "Thanks." Within 20 minutes, there were about 100 toads of various sizes. They all left after Gambunta gave them instructions. With a sigh, Naruto started preparing himself. The enemy would not arrive for a long time. Together with the Junin Tino, who was acting as the Tsunafasa's leader, the Reikage stood in the command tent that he, Orochimaru, and the Tsuchikage had set up with their combined forces. "So how exactly do we do this?" inquired the Reikage. 4 Bolt members showed up before they could say anything, saying, "Sir, we have the intel you requested." It said, "Proceed." The member of the Bolt replied, "As of now it appears the Leaf knows about our approach as they are setting up traps. However, it looks like Orochimaru was wrong about the numbers the previous attack did to them. I was able to sneak into the village and the guards at the gate are only Genins. There are around 20 Junins, 120 Chunins and around 100 Genin and Academy students. Civilians are setting up bamboo traps, but they obviously don't know what they are doing because they are putting them going both ways where anyone could walk either way to get across. They also dammed up the river and filled it with trees they cut down to make it like a barricade, but a simple chakra jump would get over it. I also learned the acting leader of the village is the one they call Namikaze, and I found out that the village actually hates him and blames him for the death of the Sandame." Astonished, the men all questioned, "How can you be sure the info is accurate?" The member of the Bolt explained, "It was the girl Orochimaru sent to spy on the village. She gave me all the codes Orochimaru gave her, and she also told me the only reason they're listening to him since he's only 15 is because he killed the council and the clan heads when he took over after they tried to kill him. Apparently he's a Jinchuriki and finally snapped like Gaara from Suna." Orochimaru asked, "Are you sure about the numbers? I mean, could they be hiding?" As they all grinned broadly. The member of the Bolt replied, "No sir, I checked everywhere for him. The villagers are afraid of the boy. When he went to kill the clan heads and the council he took out most of their forces that had not been killed previously. He seems to be the only one we actually have to be afraid of. That fool, does he even realize he is making it easier for us?" the Tsuchikage exclaimed, breaking out in laughter. "I don't know," Orochimaru expressed, "something doesn't seem right." Tino replied, "I don't know Orochimaru. I remember how Gaara was after he first snapped before his father calmed him down. He killed a fifth of our village. It's possible he's the same." Orochimaru said, "Very well, I agree we should wipe them out once and for all while they are weak. So how should we do this?" after noticing that the other leaders were all staring at him. Tino replied, "I think we should send in all our forces at once and kill them all." The Reikage responded, "No, that is stupid. Sending our forces in one wave where they can't move and risk running over each other is stupid, even if the information is 100% accurate. To make sure this isn't a trap, the Tsuchikage suggested that we send in all of the Chunin in a single wave after they enter the village. We dispatch our Genin to assist in cleaning up and collecting the war's spoils, followed by our Junin in case of a counterattack. I don't care how we do as long as every one of them dies," Orochimaru declared. I want the head of Namikaze, declared the Tsuchikage, because of what his father did to us. My village wants retribution. The Raikage replied, my village wants revenge for them for foiling our plan to kidnap a Hyuga. Tino replied, my men just want revenge for all our dead ninja and the Kazekage. How come you still had so many forces when we attacked? Orochimaru inquired. I was positive that almost all of your forces participated in the initial assault. We were a part of a covert outpost on the border between Suna and Lightning. Tino stated the Suna forces had already departed by the time the news reached us. The people who returned are either with us now or were injured and admitted to the hospital. Are there any other outpost of Suna left? Orochimaru scowled. No, we were primarily an observation outpost in case Kumo or Iwa decided to attack. Tino explained we never constructed one to observe them because we were previously allies of Konoha, but your village is known to have had time to do so. The Raikage asked, what are your feelings for the leaf now? After all of the cages nodded. Tino stated, my brother died in the attack, Baki, I will avenge him. Ah yes, the Junin sensei of the Kazekage children, Orochimaru remarked. Yes, Tino replied, if it's okay with you, I'd like to stop talking about that until I've dealt with my brother's killer's blood. Oh, of course, let's get back to discussing our plans, the Raikage said. Tino believed that those fools shall die. When the Suna, Iwa, Sound, and Kumo forces arrived at the village the following day, they discovered bamboo traps pointing in both directions and witnessed injured civilians fleeing back toward the village. Listen to me, Konoha, Naruto said as he emerged from the village walls. The underground cave in the Hokage monument is the destination for all civilians. He put his hands together and said, Ninja, you know what to do. As 200 copies of him materialized, they started hurling kunais at the enemy while using hand signals and exclaiming, Kage Kuniya no Jutsu. The kunais multiplied to about 1,000 and began to land in the center of the Iwa and Kumo forces when all of a sudden a yellow flash appeared. Come on, everyone, into the village, cried the Tsuchikage. Only when you are in the vicinity of the kunais will the Hiraishin function. A yellow flash flashed through the center of the Iwa Nin's forces as they began to run toward the village. As they flashed through hand signs, the Kumo Nins fled from the kunais, falling back as Naruto appeared in the yellow flashes. Lightning struck the kunais, causing them to explode in smoke. Naruto then began to scream as blood began to fall from his lightning-stricken body. Orochimaru said, all sound forces move in and kill all civilians and leaf ninjas. After witnessing Naruto fall, don't leave anyone alive. A number of ninja and the villagers were running toward the Hokage monument when the Iwa ninja entered the village. One of them remarked, look, they're running scarred. They all started after them, saying, let's get those cowards. Tino commanded Orochimaru, saying, all Suna forces, surround the village and don't let anyone escape. When the Tsuchikage noticed Naruto on the ground, he smirked and strode forward, drawing a sword, saying, so, the legacy of the Yondaime. As the Suna ninjas began to circle the village, as he raised his sword and started to swing down, he asked, tell me, how does it feel to soon be joining your father? When Tsunade and Jiraiya appeared on the battlefield's edge and started running toward Naruto and the Tsuchikage, a shout of "No!" sounded throughout the battlefield, grabbing everyone's attention. Everyone was shocked when Naruto's body exploded in blood as the blade sliced through his flesh, removing his head. Orochimaru yelled, blood clone, shit. He started to look around and asked, where is he? He screamed as a blade pierced his back. Everyone was staring at Orochimaru when they noticed the grass cutter lodged in his stomach, and Tino was standing behind him. As Naruto emerged from the smoke, Tino burst out laughing and uttered, I told you, Orochimaru, I would get my revenge on you. Orochimaru exclaimed, how? Suna never joined you, asshole, smirked Naruto before informing the village of your attack. I took them out 3 days ago, now die, he said, yanking the blade out as he spun, slicing off Orochimaru's head before it struck the ground and exposed Kabuto's body. Where are you, Orochimaru? Roared Naruto. At that moment, Manda appeared with Orochimaru on his head as a puff of smoke engulfed the area south of the village. Naruto was approached by Jiraiya and Tsunade, and the Raikage remarked, so you played us for a fool, huh boy? As he hurled a kunai at a tree with an exploding tag on it, Naruto grinned and remarked, not yet. The tag exploded just as the Tsuchikage was about to charge Naruto. As an explosion shook Konoha, Naruto swiftly seized Jiraiya and Tsunade before vanishing in a yellow flash. The three appeared behind the enemy forces as a fireball shot into the sky, but Manda suddenly exploded out of the ground in front of them and dove at the three. After noticing that about 500 enemy ninjas were still alive following the explosion, Naruto scowled and thought, shit, I was hoping to take out more with the explosion. It appears that only the majority of the Chunins were killed, but I still have those traps as Manda dobied them. He sent a mental command to his cage-bun shins, saying, the Genins might fall for them, but the Junins won't. As a wind picked up the bamboo spikes and launched them toward the ninjas fleeing from the burning remains of Konoha and those who had remained, the Suna shinobis that had been circling the village all went up in smoke, revealing Naruto's cage bunshins. They all then started flashing through hand signs and saying, Futon. Kamaitachi. Everyone began using earth jutsu or replacing themselves to escape the flying death spikes that were coming their way after hearing multiple cries of, look out. As Jiraiya and Tsunade called forth their respective bosses, Naruto coughed up blood after being struck in the chest by Manda's tail. Gambunta pulled out his dagger, looked around, and said, I thought you said I wouldn't get any actions, kid. Don't blame me. The pervert showed up along with Granny here and forced me to spring my trap early. Naruto coughed a little and got to his feet before being flung to the ground by a boulder. As Naruto began to slowly stand up, the Tsuchikage laughed and remarked, you're not such a tough kid. Before kicking him in the ribs you ought to know better than to attempt to confront a cage. As he exploded, sending the Tsuchikage flying, Naruto glared at him and said, you should also know not to believe everything you see. The Tsuchikage then struck a tree and turned into mud. Where the hell is the kid at? Jiraiya thought, frowning as he glanced around with those two traps. He appears to have eliminated about half of the enemy forces. Orochimaru is more resilient than I had anticipated, and Tsunade and I don't appear to be winning this battle. And two cages are still present. What was he thinking? As the sky darkened with smoke, the Raikage who had been murdering cage bunshins swiftly started making hand signs and exclaimed, Raiden. Gigastorm. Hundreds of lightning bolts struck the ground, killing almost all of the cage bunshin as well as several Iwa, Sound, and Kumo nins. That was impressive, but not as impressive as this, a chilly voice said as he touched down Amaterasu. He screamed as black flames engulfed him before he collapsed to the ground. As everyone turned, Naruto emerged in front of the Raikage's body. He saw two men wearing red clouds and black cloaks, and he said, I recognize that voice. Why are you here, Itachi? Itachi said, I have my own reasons for being here, as he turned to face the battlefield and noticed Orochimaru. The leader wants Orochimaru's head and ring, so come Kisame. As they ran toward Manda, the man beside Itachi drew his sword and uttered the words, about time. Shit, Orochimaru thought, what is Atasuki doing here? As an Iwa nin hurled multiple earth spikes at the boss toad, Jiraiya leapt off Gambunta's head. Tsunade leapt high into the air, grabbed her leg, and descended, shattering the ground as she picked up a slab of earth and hurled it at a sizable ninja horde. Listen. Get Jiraiya and fall back, Naruto said as he landed next to her. You will perish in the last trap if you don't. According to Tsunade, not without you, but I am not here right now, Naruto said, stabbing a kunai in the neck of another nin. This place is full of cage bunshins. Then where are you? Tsunade scowled after slamming a Rasengan into a Sound nin's stomach. Naruto commanded, look to the north. After striking a nin in the face, breaking his neck, Tsunade quickly looked to the north and went pale, seeing the one-tailed demon Shukaku approaching from the north, seemingly attacking something on the ground. Gambunta stabbed Manda in the head with his dagger as Jiraiya landed next to them, trapping Manda in a swamp of the underworld. Jiraiya replied, I hope you got a plan, Gaki, because I am starting to tire out. Tsunade began to run south, saying, come Jiraiya, we got to go now. Jiraiya looked at her and Naruto bewilderedly and said, wait, where are you going, Tsunade? Go Ero Sannin, Naruto said, grabbing the neck of another nin, because if you don't, I won't be able to spring the final trap. Jiraiya replied, this isn't a game, kid, and I am not leaving you behind. As he charged another group of Iwa ninjas, Naruto yelled, Boss Toad, take the pervert and Granny and get out of here now please before it's too late. Tsunade landed on Gambunta's head and said, listen, Gaki's isn't here. He's fighting the demon to the north. As he scowled and opened his mouth to speak, let's leave and have faith in him. Gambunta glanced to the north, stuck out his tongue, and snatched Jiraiya with it before leaping out of the fighting area. Orochimaru attempted to defend himself with one arm after losing the other as Itachi and Kisame pushed him toward the village. What are you doing here, Itachi? Inquired Orochimaru. Itachi remarked, Leader-sama is not pleased because your actions have already destroyed the Kyuubi. Orochimaru to kill you and get your ring back, he sent us here. As he tried to defend himself by stopping the blood flow from his missing arm's stump, Orochimaru jumped back and spat out some blood. Snakes swarmed at Itachi and Kisame, who both exploded into water as he opened his mouth. Orochimaru's world turned red the moment Itachi appeared in front of him, and before he could react, he felt pain tearing through his back as the Kisame sword shaved it. Itachi stood in front of Orochimaru, who was bound to a cross, and said, "Now, Orochimaru, it's time for you to pay for what you have done." As a gray hair grew on Orochimaru's head, he stabbed him in the stomach, saying, "For the next 72 hours you shall experience dying over and over again as your body ages." This went on for hours until Itachi paused and remarked, 71 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds to go. Orochimaru's heart stopped and he screamed, returning from the genjutsu. Itachi snatched his sword and cut off Orochimaru's head. He then seized the ring on his finger and destroyed it with his Amaterasu. As he saw the enormous sand demon making his way to the battlefield, Kisame questioned, "What about Shukaku?" As they both leapt away, Itachi said, "Not our worry for now, let's go." The majority of the combined forces of Iwa, Kumo, and Sound were dead, as were almost all of the Kage Bunshin. According to the Tsuchikage's assessment of the battlefield, the Raikage was dead, as was Orochimaru. The Sannins were running away, and the real Naruto was nowhere to be seen. When he heard the sound of trees breaking behind him, he scowled and asked himself, how did this battle get turned around so much? When he saw the demon approaching them, he turned, went pale, and began to flee while screaming, "Retreat." The Tsuchikage believed, "Shit, we're all going to die," when the river, which had been dammed up with trees in it, exploded in flames, cutting off their escape route. As he appeared next to the Tsuchikage, Naruto grinned and uttered, "So, how's it going, asshole?" Naruto was thrown a kunai by the Tsuchikage as he rose in smoke. As they continued to run toward Konoha, a number of Iwa, Kumo, and Sound Nins leapt over the fire and headed toward the Tsuchikage. They turned and threw exploding tags at the demon, saying, "You can't kill us, demon, we will stop you." When the Tsuchikage realized what had happened, they went pale and began to flee after the ninjas who had just attacked the demon and stabbed one of them as it rose in smoke. As a wall of sand rose as tall as Shukaku and descended toward the village of Konoha, burying everyone and everything, Shukaku yelled, "I will kill you all for this. You dare attack me and ruin my revenge." As the demon advanced on the village, which consisted solely of roofs protruding from the sand, Naruto emerged on the Hokage monument searching for any enemy ninjas. "Shit, I can't believe it worked. All of them are dead, but now what do I have to do with him? I have almost no chakra left. Several ribs broke and who knows what else since I. He thought as his vision blurred and he began to fall off the Yondaime's head toward the village below, cutting all over his body and holding his ribs as blood poured from his mouth. "Please come back to me, Naruto, I love you," Kurenai thought as she held herself in Wave Country. They had been out of Konoha for more than a week with the exception of Naruto and the Anbu. All of Konoha's villagers and ninja had returned. All of the Chunins had returned. Too, it seems that Jiraiya of the Sannins had confronted the group and told them to go to the meeting spot rather than Suna. When they got there, nobody else was there. Kurenai now stood with her arms wrapped around her on the Great Naruto Bridge, gazing toward the mainland. Since they got there, she had been doing this every day. "Don't worry, he's still alive," she said, tensing up as she felt a chakra signature arrive and turning to see Sakura standing there. "How can you be so sure?" Kurenai asked, turning back to the mainland. Sakura replied, "Because you're still alive. If he dies, you die, just like if you die, he dies." "What are you talking about?" Kurenai blinked. "It's one of the other things the Uzumaki blood carries. It makes it where lovers are never separated. Even in death it links your lives together so that if one dies the other does not have to worry about living without them," Sakura explained, biting her hand and then walking over to rub the blood across Kurenai's neck, removing her headband and using the polished mirror portion to show Kurenai where a strange spiral seal appeared. Astonished, Kurenai questioned, "How?" Anko, who was approaching, replied, "Remember the first kiss you and the Gaki shared? The moment you did, you both passed out. Iruka and I were worried until the Hokage came and told us what it was. He ordered us not to tell you so you could fall in love and admit your feelings." When Kurenai realized Naruto was still alive, she started crying and questioned, "If he's still alive, why hasn't he shown up? Have you ever fought an army and a demon and tried to walk like nothing happened?" A voice from the fog between the mainland and the island of waves asked, causing all three women to turn and stare as multiple figures emerged from the mist. Jiraiya was standing next to a Tsunade. In front of them a woman with black hair was behind them, clutching a pig. A few Anbu were standing next to her, with another 200 or so behind them. Naruto, wearing only pants, was in the center of the group. He caught her and swung her around before locking lips with her as he put her feet on the ground and pulled her close. Kurenai gasped as she looked at him and saw scars all over his body. She ran forward and jumped when she got close enough. Jiraiya smirked as he took out his notepad as a number of catcalls and wolf whistles resounded. However, Tsunade grabbed it and threw it over the edge of the bridge, giving Jiraiya a fierce look. The couple parted ways after a few seconds, and Naruto said, "Miss me? Why did you lie to me?" Kurenai asked in a sobbing voice as she slapped him across the face and then gathered him in an embrace. Placing his chin on her head, Naruto sighed and uttered, "So you would not try and stop me?" According to Kurenai, "But why?" Naruto replied, "Because I promised I would do anything to protect you and that's what I did." Then Anko said, "So what happened?" With a sigh, Naruto said, "Well." And over the course of the following hour, he described how he had ambushed Suna ninjas and assembled them into a Kage Bunshin army. He also described the traps he had set up and how Itachi had arrived and killed both the Hokage and Orochimaru. He described how Jiraiya and Tsunade appeared, forcing him to set up his trap early, and how he used clones to attack Shukaku by posing as Sound, Iwa, and Kumo ninjas. He then described how Shukaku arrived and buried the village and all of the survivors alive. After that, he described how he was bleeding on the Hokage monument and running low on chakra when he fainted and fell, saying, "And that was the last thing I remembered was falling." When the elders, Sandyami, and the clan heads had finally arrived to hear everything, Sume questioned, "So what happened after that?" "Well," said Tsunade. Rewind. A toad appeared as Naruto was falling toward the ground, snagged him in its mouth, then landed on the sand and leapt away. The summoned bosses for the slugs and frogs suddenly reappeared, grabbing Shukaku's attention. When Katsuyu spat acid at the raccoon demon, Tsunade remarked, "Your time is up, Shukaku." Shukaku laughed and said, "Yes, I shall have your blood," taking the attack and beginning to repair the damage. As Gambunta spat out oil, Jiraiya said, "Oi, give me some oil." Jiraiya then used a Kaiden jutsu to set it on fire and hurled it at the raccoon, which screamed in rage. Gambunta then drew his dagger and leapt in the direction of the sand demon, which was sucking in air and had mouths starting to form on its body. Just as Gambunta's dagger sliced Shukaku's arm, cutting it off, Katsuyu launched another acid shot at the demon, blowing a hole in its enlarged stomach and causing the air it had inhaled to explode outward, creating a massive hole that began to reform. As its wounds and arm began to heal, Shukaku screamed, "I will kill you for this. I shall enjoy your blood greatly." At that moment, Shukaku was surrounded by 6 wooden pillars and cried out, "What is the meaning of this? Who is stealing my power?" About 200 Anbu appeared, all of them using hand signs to launch fire jutsu at the demon, while one Anbu stood at the edge of the new desert with his hands on the ground. When Gambunta began to spit out oil once more, Jiraiya said, "Oi, give me oil again." Jiraiya then set it on fire. Katsuyu began attacking the demon that was wailing in agony with a series of acid shots. By this time, the Anbu who was building the wooden pillars was growing weary and they began to crumble. As Gambunta continued to shoot flamethrowers out of his mouth, Jiraiya scowled and remarked, "It's not working, he's getting free." Jiraiya looked around and saw that Naruto was awake, staring at the attack, and that Tsunade was by his side, healing him. He said, "Dad's head," in a weak, exhausted voice. Tsunade said, "Don't talk, you're too weak," with a perplexed expression. "No, listen, destroy the Yondaime's head, it will stop Shukaku," said Naruto, shaking his head. As Tsunade put it, "What do you mean?" As he passed out, Naruto uttered the words, "Destroy the Yondaime's head on the monument, trust me, please." He was in excruciating pain. Turning, Tsunade screamed, "Jiraiya," the kid said, "to destroy the Yondaime's head to stop Shukaku." Confused, Jiraiya remarked, "You heard her, boss, the Gaki's plans have worked until now, so might as well try it." As he leaps toward the Hokage monument and drives his sword into the Yondaime's head, Gambunta nods and stops spitting fire. Jiraiya leapt off as water blasted out of the crevice and shot toward Gambunta, causing him to ascend in smoke. When the wooden pillars began to fall, the attack's force struck Shukaku squarely in the chest. The demon screamed, "No!" as its body started to shrink and turn to mud, and the water continued to hit at its feet. Sand is also becoming wet. As the pillars finally fell apart, everyone leapt away and watched as the demon continued to attempt to reassemble itself, but it failed as the sand was soaked by the water. The demon Shukaku stopped pulling itself together as everyone watched over the course of the following hour as the water continued to soak the sand. Jiraiya approached the body, looked at it, and said, "I see." "What happened to it, Jiraiya?" Tsunade inquired. Jiraiya took hold of Gaara's body, pulled it out of the water, started performing hand seals, and burned it until it turned to ash. Once the body was gone, Jiraiya turned and saw everyone looking at him and said, "As most of you should know, from when Kyuubi was sealed, the demon's body was sealed as well into the body of the host. It provides an anchor point for the spirit to stay in this world. When Shukaku was weakened from our combined attacks, he was having to restore his body, but being a sand demon he is vulnerable to fire or water. Fire turns it to glass and water condenses it down, making it unable to move without a lot of chakra. Every time Shukaku was trying to repair itself, it was drawing more and more chakra to do so. Now what no one realizes, when you seal a living creature in another, yes, the chakra the beast has at the time goes into the new body, but without a living body its chakra reserves are not endless. Without Gaara death during the first attack, his normal body could not produce chakra any longer, and Shukaku was forced to keep using his own chakra. As time goes on, Shukaku was getting weaker and weaker since the body we just fought was not a real body, so when the water made it harder to repair itself. According to Tsunade, it died of chakra exhaustion. And Anbu said, "Okay, I get that, but how is it the water is coming out of the Yondaime's nose?" After Jiraiya nodded. Naruto, who had woken up, said, "Because the river I dammed up was redirected to fill the underground escape tunnels. When I made the village explode, I basically heated the water that had gathered inside." And, as everyone blinked, looked, and began to laugh, Jiraiya replied, "You made the mountain into a water heater, and the only way it could escape was the hole in the Yondaime's head." Tsunade made her hands glow and touched Naruto's head as he fainted, and Naruto nodded. Finish the flashback according to Tsunade, and that was about it. The Sandame questioned, "So why did it take you all so long to get back here then?" As everyone was in awe. With a sheepish expression, Naruto said, "Well, The Sandame questioned what Naruto was saying. "The Fire Lord came by to give a mission as we were getting ready to leave, and he Yes, spill it already, go dem," the Sandame said. Naruto glanced at Jiraiya and Tsunade, and Jiraiya remarked, "He made us go back to his place so I could autograph his collection of Icha Paradise." Tsunade remarked, "While we were there, all my debt collectors showed up and, as everyone's faces failed, I was forced to pay off her debts," Jiraiya remarked. Tsunade continued, "And the Gaki needed a few extra days to discuss the plans to restore Konoha." "Oh, and guess what?" said Naruto as we speak. "Konoha is being rebuilt after learning of our initial attack. The Fire Lord apparently wanted to renovate the village and hired a number of contractors. In 3 months, the village will be restored." Kakashi questioned, "How did everything so conveniently happening?" As everyone started to perspire. As he pulled Kurenai into a kiss, Naruto remarked, "Well, unlike Granny here, I'm very lucky, aren't I, dear?" After breaking the kiss, Kurenai grinned and said, "At least you will be in a little bit." She then took his hand and began to pull him away while swaying her hips. Shaking his head, Asuma uttered the words, "Lucky." "You know it," said Naruto with a sly smile. "Hello, old man, I'm going to be on vacation for a few days." As everyone laughed, Kurenai shushed them both away and said, "Years." As he watched everyone scatter and find somewhere to stay, the third grinned and pondered, "And so the will of fire lives on. Although the future remains uncertain, Konoha will endure." At that moment, a shout reverberated throughout the island of waves. "Oh yes, Narutokun. Harder, harder, faster, oh god yes." Naruto-kun's flames of youth burn brightly. "Don't you agree, Kakashi?" Guy yelled as he turned to face Kakashi when Guy said, "Damn you, cool hip attitude." Kakashi looked up from his book and said, "I don't know, Guy, I think he's getting lost on the road of life." He then turned a page.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.